Howdy, howdy, ho, ho, my fellow humans of planet Earth. How the hell are you good people doing? We are recording ultra early, my time here today. Uh, I have a work event to go to later on in the day, so I wanted to make sure we had time to fit this in because we have a lot to go over here today. I'm gonna go ahead and apologize in advance. It's probably gonna be a little bit longer of a show. We have a full state of play to go over, review, recap, all of that, and a bunch of news as well. And also, if we do end up running too long on the news segments, I do want to apologize in advance if we don't dive too much into what we're playing or the side topic, but I do have some side topics that are, scheduled to go out later in the week in place of the one that we may not be able to record today. So I just want to get that out and apologize in advance for any potential possibilities of not being as thorough as usual. But regardless, we have a good show today. Loon, how you doing?
Yeah, not too bad. Plenty, like you said, plenty of news topics this week, and a shaky showcase, in my opinion,
Yeah,
overall.
we can go ahead and jump straight into that state of play. I guess we'll just quickly give some overall thoughts on it. I listen, I know every single time anybody discusses a state of play, you have people saying, "Well, it's not a showcase. They have specific branding for a specific reason." I get it. I get it. In my opinion, if you're just looking at a video game showcase, as in a show that puts together a bunch of trailers and gives you information and insight into upcoming games, I don't think that was a good showcase, just a
Mm.
showing of games. Do I think it was a fine state of play? Sure. But state of plays are typically bad, so it's like, sure, it lived up to the other bad ones. It was another bad one. That's kind of how I feel about it. It's not as bad as some of them. There was enough in there that was like, okay, cool. I'm definitely going to check out a couple of these games. But when I think of like the best showcases ever, and I've said this a million times, or at least of recent memory, the June 2022 showcase, when we had Resident Evil 4 revealed for the first time ever, Resident Evil 4 revealed for the first time ever at a state of play. Street Fighter 6 got its like world premiere like gameplay debut at that June showcase. Callisto Protocol had a gameplay debut. It was loaded with VR content. We had No Man's Sky VR. You had Horizon Call of the Mountain VR. You had some other VR shit in that showcase that I'm forgetting off the top of my head, but it was packed with like big titles. It was announced that Stray was coming to PlayStation Plus. Rollerdrome was announced at that showcase at that June state of play. So it was just there was more must play titles at that showcase. And I was looking it up or at that state of play. I was looking it up the other day, but I didn't jot down everything that was all there. But off the top of my brain, those are some of the standouts from that June state of play that to me was like a significantly better state of play than this one. So even when I compare it to that state of play, I think this one was underwhelming. Not the worst thing in the world. Like for me, as a video game showcase, it's like a 3 or 4 out of 10. As a state of play, sure, like a 5.5 out of 10, something like that.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't special, really. Um, a lot of live servicey games were floating around there, and then we had a bunch of stuff get shown which we already knew existed. And then the stuff that did get shown kind of new. There are a few things I don't think I've seen before. Didn't really like turn my head, as it were, because a lot of them are Souls likes. And I can't believe I'm saying this in this like ask me this like 3, 4 years ago. I don't think I would have had that same opinion, but Jesus Christ, there's so many of them. I get that it's popular and stuff, but every single time like you see combat like that, you like groan a little bit because it's like there's only so much you can milk of this that people would want. there's already enough of it, and you're all bringing it dry even further. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, I agree. While you were talking there, I went and pulled up that list just to make sure I wasn't crazy about the June state of play. So um you had that Walking Dead Saints and Sinners VR game. You had Final Fantasy 16 gameplay trailer with a release date. You had let's see, Season a Letter to the Future. I mean, you RE8 VR was announced for the first time at that show. So like it was just a significantly better show, in my opinion. And that's the thing. Everything's going to come down to personal preference. But to me, it's like RE4 is a must-play title. Street Fighter 6 is a must-play title. Final Fantasy 16 must-play title. Rollerdrome for me personally was a must-play title. I love that game. Callisto at the time was must-play. Stray was probably must-play in that realm for me, stuff that I was like, I'm definitely going to check this out. Whereas
Yeah.
with this showcase, Astro Bot, Monster Hunter, and Silent Hill 2 were really the only games there that I'm like, yeah, I'm definitely gonna check this out. So once again, it's all gonna come down to personal subjective opinion, but I do agree with you on the Souls-like thing. Um, uh, when you're looking at Wolong and Rise of the Ronin, and I don't know if Black Myth Wukong is going to be another Souls-like, but obviously Elden Ring DLC on the horizon. We've just been, Lords of the Fallen, and we've just been there's been so many. I told you this last week. I put together a list from 2020 to 2024. There have been like 25 Souls-like games that have released in that 4 year span. That
Yeah.
is batshit crazy. Like there's no other subgenre that even comes close to that, I would imagine. Um, so anyways, how about we go ahead and begin talking about the show in depth, go through each and every single game, give our quick thoughts on them all. Did you have anything else you wanted to hit on for as like our overview thoughts before we dive into it in
No, we
depth?
can go. We're going through it chronologically as to what was shown, right?
Yeah.
So Concord was first. Did we know what it was before this? Because I'd heard
Oh,
the name floating around. Is this the first time that we've seen like full on what the thing is? Because
yeah. Yeah.
I I wasn't too hot on that. It's clearly trying to capture like an Overwatch demographic. And the thing I've never understood is why are like platform holders targeting this type of game? This is something that you'd want on every single platform, as widespread as possible to get as many fingers in a pie. Because we saw, I know people like will say, Xbox has a smaller player base and stuff like that, but like they tried it with Bleeding Edge. What was that, a few years ago?
Yeah, 2019, I think.
And it was dead on arrival. And obviously, PlayStation has a bigger install base, but I don't really see people jumping out of their seats for this, really. Because you saw what the other thing, the launch title on PlayStation, the car game, All Star
Oh,
something,
Destruction All Stars, yeah.
Destruction. Yeah, that was dead on arrival. And that was meant to originally launch as like a $70 thing, and then they ended up giving it away for free, didn't they? That still didn't save it.
Yeah, it's the weird thing where like you have examples of it where it works, like a Helldivers, obviously smash hit, and then you have examples of it where it flops massively. And for this style of it, yeah, it'll be available on PC. So I mean, you got your 50 million PlayStation users, you got your whatever 100 million PC owners out there. So you have a player pool there. It's just I don't think the player pool is really the thing that matters with it. It's another one of these games that looks like a lot of these other games. And I don't when you look at the cinematics of Concord, you're like, holy shit.
Mm.
This is amazing. It was pretty well written. The characters were charming. It's pretty much entirely ripping off Guardians of the Galaxy, so I
Yeah.
guess you should have charming characters if that's your inspiration, but it's like when you see the cinematics, you're like, this is a game I would definitely love to play. A story like this with characters that are well written like this, and then you get into the hero shooter aspect of it, and you're just like, oh my God. Like this looks like everything else. It's cool that some of the characters have their own powers depending on their class, and you see the character with like the lady character with the magic powers and shit, fine. But like I don't I everybody is totally entitled to their own opinion, but I just don't understand who wants to play a game like this at this point. We have so many out there on the market.
It's not even just that either. It's I don't understand why you want to cannibalize a player base like that. Where to me it would make sense if you wanted to target a live service game, because Sony's already done Helldivers, like you said. That's a decent crossover of like people who want to be in the live service ecosystem. What, so you're gonna expect them to just come off of that to move on to this?
Exactly. Yeah.
Because there's no way anybody who has access to a PlayStation, like it would be minute numbers that would, not want to play Helldivers but would want to be in this game. So it just, yeah, it doesn't make sense. I would have expected like maybe push it out to next year so that you could hit like a live service each year. Because this is coming out rather soon, isn't it?
August
As well.
24th,
Yeah.
2024, beta in July.
Crazy.
Yeah. Listen, I'd be so down to play this game. If it was a 12-hour narrative first-person shooter, hell yeah.
Yeah.
Sign me up. It looks cool as shit. It's just like, and here's the thing. I have to understand when speaking about these things. At a certain point, I probably need to just shut up and understand that it's not my expertise. So I'll allow people who are experts in those genres of games to speak about it. None of these games are ever going to appeal to me. Helldivers didn't appeal to me, and it's the best-selling game of the year by a country mile. And so it's like, what do I know? At the end of the day, this could be a smash hit, but for me personally, obviously, all we can do is give our opinion. For me personally, this moved the needle nowhere. The cinematics look great. Everything else looked like total cash grabby, recycled fucking just, yeah, nothing doing for me.
It just feels like a shot in the dark for me. It just feels like if it hits for them is what they're thinking, and if it doesn't, then it's just that
Yeah.
thing of where you throw eight darts at a wall and seven of them bounce off.
Yeah. It's the monkey throwing shit. And then it is what it is. I mean, I hope it hits. I'm not gonna lie. Like I'll be totally real. I'm ecstatic that Helldivers hit the way it did. I hope this does too, because in my opinion, this is the best case scenario. If these games hit, that means it's not your premier teams who you're forcing to make this this shit. You're allowing your premier teams to continue working on single player, high quality narrative driven IP. And then you have these other teams that you just brought in or bought, or, these different partners who are working on these live service games for you that you own. So it's like, that's perfect. Have those games be huge hits and let all the premier teams work on premier titles. And speaking of premier teams with a premier title, God of War Ragnarok is coming to PC September 19th, 2024. So it seems like Sony's pretty much just a couple years, about 2 years from their PS5 release to the PC release. Sometimes even a little bit shorter than that. The window seems to be getting slightly shorter, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. But yeah, God of War Ragnarok coming to PC. Nothing I really need to add. Good game. I think PC players will obviously enjoy it. Then we move on to Dynasty Warriors Origins. And also, I should mention that you have to have a PSN account to play God of War Ragnarok, which is just, uh, you know, it sucks because there's so many areas of the world where PSN's not even available. So
They they knew what they were doing. They got the flack, and then you just keep putting it in because eventually people will just stop giving a shit. And that's, people made their stink and then thought that they, won as it were, and then yeah.
yeah, just make PSN available in those regions, and that it's not, let people play it. And I understand, serve, it's all resources and whatever. But Dynasty Warriors Origins definitely looks like some Dynasty Warriors coming out 2025. How do you feel about this, Loon?
It was the first thing that was like, okay, that's interesting because I don't think this has been announced prior to this.
No, This is the
This
first
is
announcement.
this is the first announcement for it, and it's nice to see because I think they're called like Muso games. It's nice to see them not being completely abandoned, especially after what was it, Dynasty Warriors? Was it 9 or 10? Whether it was the most recent one where it was absolutely shambolic.
Yeah.
Um, I'm kind of surprised they even went back to the series because it sold so poorly and had such bad reception. So hopefully this one lands a little bit better because if this also bombs, then it might be one less genre, to be honest, because
Mm,
they don't, nobody really touches on that genre other than Dynasty Warriors anymore.
yeah. I mean, it didn't look awful. It didn't look god awful. It just looked like Dynasty Warriors. It looks like a generation or two late. It definitely doesn't look like something that like a doesn't it definitely doesn't look like a AAA title or anything like that. Like it doesn't have that look to it, but it is impressive. All those damn characters on the screen at one time and shit. So sure. Dynasty Warriors coming 2025. Infinity Nikki. Um, it's a game where you go and you get different outfits and customize them, I think. And but I will say the open world aspect of this where she's like flying around and there's those different little like islands that she can land on. Some of this shit looked really impressive just from a visual fidelity perspective. Um, do I think I'll ever want to actually play this game? Not at all. But
No.
visual fidelity, shout out to you. You did look you crazy enough, you're probably one of the better looking games of the entire show.
Yeah, I'd be inclined to agree. It was like, this is interesting. And then it started showing the actual like what was going on in the game, and I was like, oh, this is not for me.
Yeah. Hey, I'm all for it. You gotta appeal to as wide of a demographic as possible.
Yeah,
I
yeah, of
totally
course.
understand that. So shout out to Infinity Nikki. Won't be something I'll check out, but I do appreciate because I think this is like a big mobile franchise, if I'm not mistaken. Like it's
It
made
definitely
tons.
feels like that.
Yeah, and so I think they're kind of pouring some of that mobile cash, which crazy enough, that's the same thing with Shift Up with Stellar Blade. They made all their money in the mobile space and then we're like, "Hey, I wonder if we can take some of these resources and make like a really good game." And they did. So hopefully Infinity Nikki will follow the same fate. Ballad of Antara is coming 2025. This is a free-to-play game, another open world fantasy, seemingly Souls-like style game. Definitely seemed like this had a budget on it. I wonder why it has a budget with it being a free to play game. I haven't looked into the publisher developer too much. I probably need to do that to see who's funding it, but it looks like it has some serious money behind it and it's free to play, so I'm assuming they'll microtransaction the
Yeah.
absolute shit out of the players. So
I won't
yeah.
lie, the opening like few seconds, it kind of looked as if it was gonna be like Sekiro too. I was like, okay, interesting. And then obviously it started to show that it was not in fact that. So for it to gain that first impression from me, that definitely says that it's got a budget. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It is going to be multiplayer. Uh, you can play it single player as well, I think, but it's up to 3 players. So let's see, you can venture with your friends or find other players to face this challenge, land head on, including story quests, exploration, and intricately designed dungeons. So, okay, sure. Free to play is always a massive, massive red flag. So, but every now and then you actually do have a decent free to play game where the microtransactions make sense and all that. I doubt it'll be this one, but we shall see. Um, Okay, now we get to our VR section where we had a grand total of 2 VR games shown for this headset that PlayStation spent hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars creating. And
Yeah.
both of these 2 VR games will launch day and date on every single other fucking VR platform known to man. Sony is clearly done funding VR experiences and even seemingly done paying for exclusive VR content. So that was kind of my big takeaway from the two VR games, and we'll talk about them in specific, but I would kind of rather for a second here just get your take on VR and PlayStation as a whole. Do we ever see a VR game pop back up at any? I mean, I guess maybe do we ever see anything that's exclusive to PSVR 2 again? Do we ever see anything that Sony funds again? Like, what the fuck is going on with this thing?
I have absolutely no idea, if I'm being 100% honest. I was shocked to hear that they even took a second crack at it, to be 100% honest. But that's just obviously it's what happens when you have, funding years down the line and you just have to see it through. Because VR has never been something that appeals to me at all. Like I I can respect those that, want that, but I've always said this time and time again, I'm not into gimmicks. And that's what it is. To me, it's just you have a controller or a keyboard and mouse. That is the optimal way to play games.
Controller.
Like, so yeah, like I don't need a thing to strap onto my forehead, and that to me that doesn't enhance anything. Like I'm sure that they're really interesting experiences that can be had on them, but I play
Yeah.
games to like unwind and relax and detach from everything. I don't want something, yeah, weighing me down, as it were.
Well, and it's like I just don't understand why anyone would select the PlayStation VR 2 device out of all of them because like the MetaQuest has the what is it, Asgard's Wrath, the game that came out I think last year. Um I believe that's Meta that has that. I could get some of the names wrong for the platform specific shit, but that Asgard's Wrath game is exclusive to one of these VR headsets, and it's like a must-play title for VR owners. And then you have Half-Life Alyx, a must-play for VR owners. The two must-play VR titles are not even available on PSVR 2. So it's like, why would you ever buy one of those? I don't know. I guess for Gran Turismo. Shout out to Gran Turismo. But the first VR game that they had up on the docket was Behemoth. And this is unfortunately SkyDance funding a new IP in the VR space. I know they did the Walking Dead games, which have more brand recognition, obviously, are going to do a little bit better financially than a brand new IP, unless this is the huge hit that VR has desperately been needing, especially PSVR 2. Um, to be fair, I will say this Behemoth game looked pretty fucking sick. Maybe one of the best looking games in terms of gameplay that was shown at the show overall. There's that big ass boss that's like your yeah, he's like trying to step down on you and you're avoiding his foot, and there seems like to be some environmental damage that's going on or environmental interaction that's slightly dynamic in the VR space. You have that grapple hook that you're pulling the bridge down and hooking to enemies and shit. Like the gameplay for Behemoth actually did look pretty cool. So I will give a shout out there. But once again, it's coming to all platforms. So
Yeah, it, it definitely looks like it's one of the stronger VR titles, but as you said, if it's something to draw you in to their ecosystem, other instead of other ones, it's not going to do that because it's available everywhere else. So
yeah, and it's just the thing where it worries me because Amy Hennig has those two games in development at Skydance. And it's like, please don't blow all your money in the VR space before she's able to release those actual like high quality games. Like, please allow her to get those games out the door. Do not lose all your money in VR. But yeah,
I'd be really interested to know like how different the amount of budget is compared to a standard like AAA game to a AAA VR game. That'd be interesting to like have that information.
well, that's the scary thing, Loon, is that most VR games look like something that, it doesn't require AAA budgets at all. But when you see Behemoth and that Saints and Sinners game, it's like, oh shit, these look kind of expensive, man. I'm imagining these are well in the 50 plus $1 million range to put together. I could be wrong, but they look pretty damn complex compared to the average VR title.
Yeah.
But speaking of the average VR title, we have Alien Rogue. What was it? Insurgent or
Incursion.
Insurrect? Okay, Incursion.
Incursion. Yeah.
Um, Holiday 2024 for this one. Listen, this actually I do think is important. Pretty much Alien Isolation in VR. I do think that's a great, just easy elevator pitch for a game. This probably will be pretty sick. Uh, wasn't a lot shown here, like a little
No.
20-30 second slice of what seemingly some form of gameplay. I don't think once again it's going to move the needle in any crazy direction, but cool to have like you have The Walking Dead and then some other like Batman coming later this year. Just cool little maybe couple hour experience. Sure.
Yeah, no, it's the perfect fit. You think of Alien Isolation and stuff. You'd think that it'd fit perfectly. It's the first person survival horror games are like really good fits for VR as
Right.
experiences. Like you had like Resident Evil that has tried it. Has Amnesia had a crack at it yet in VR?
I don't think so. I could be wrong. I don't think so though.
Because it definitely feels like it's the perfect genre that, you know, complements it and stuff like that.
For sure.
So, yeah.
Yeah, it's I do think that in that trailer we saw the character walking around with a pistol as well. So maybe there's like a slight bit of action. So maybe there's more than meets the eye here because what met the eye was only 30 seconds of slight gameplay. Marvel Rivals. So we go from Concord to another hero shooter, but I don't know. It's cool that it got its console announcement. I do think that's a somewhat big deal. It's pretty
Yeah,
much pretty much just Overwatch with a Marvel skin on it though. I don't think the game looks bad at all, but I just like for me personally, I would rather jump off a cliff than play this or anything like this. So it's just it's once again that thing
it's just
where
not for us. Because the
yeah,
thing is when I booted up True Achievements, I could do every morning. That was like, because obviously it announced all the stuff at the showcase, and then they only post whatever's coming to Xbox as well. And that was one of the things. And I gotta say, the comments are like fairly positive in like receiving it. And this is from a site of achievement hunters and stuff where they don't like multiplayer games for the
right.
most part. And it yeah, it's being branded Marvel Watch, but people seem to be happy with it.
Did you see all those NDAs and shit that like people who were previewing the games, they couldn't like they couldn't really criticize the game at all, and there was like all these specific terms that they couldn't use when talking about the game. It was fucking crazy.
I didn't, but that's nothing new. The stuff like that, like Anthem, had that kind of under wraps during its development. They weren't allowed to ever mention Destiny
What?
ever, and
I
then it feels like maybe they're going hard on it because of how much flack Marvel Avengers got for its character designs. Because them character designs in what was the name of the game? Marvel Rivals is, they're not based on the people in the movies. It's more creative freedoms and stuff being taken. So maybe that's why they don't want that kind of negative buzz towards it.
I don't remember the specific. It was really just the words. Like the words were so fucking funny that they couldn't say. It was like I'll have to send you a link. I can't remember off the top of my head. I apologize to the people listening. I know that's not the most compelling content of me sitting here trying to think of what the fucking words are, but I mean it was genuinely like some hilarious terms that they couldn't use. I think one was like Overwatch at home or like diet Overwatch, like shit like they were saying you can't say these words in your preview and it's like damn, is that what you think about your game? You're worried about
Exactly, no, that exactly. When they word it like that and they point out themselves, it's like you're exposing yourself for just saying you've just ripped something off completely. Like,
yeah.
come on.
Closed beta opening up in July. So Marvel Rivals, guys. Then we move on to Where Winds Meet. And this was shown off at Summer Games Fest, I think, a couple years ago. And it looked way better when it was shown off at Summer Games Fest a couple years ago, in my opinion. Now it looks like another Souls style inspired title, just like every other game in the world. But I will say the PS blog post talks more about it being like a martial arts focused game with different fighting styles, and then you got weapons. You got a spear, a sword, dual blades, umbrella. Like it's got a lot of variety in weapons and variety in different martial arts fighting styles. So hopefully, it's more just straight up of an action game. It talks about you have the ability to like breathe fire and shit. So yeah, nowhere in the blog post does it say the term Souls-like at all. So that gives me some hope, but I don't think a lot of Souls games market themselves as Souls games. They just say like action RPG, which
Yeah,
is a bummer. I really wish if you were trying to go for that style, you just straight up,
just be transparent with it.
yeah.
Yeah,
What'd you think about
I
Where
don't have
Winds
much.
Meet?
Uh, it was the thing of like seeing it after what was the other one that was called Ballad of Antara. It was just like a guttural groan. It was just like if is this where it like has this become the new like third person shooter like on the 360 and PS3 when they reigned supreme and they just were absolutely everywhere. So hopefully that's not the case. Hopefully it's more like you said actiony and stuff like that and less reliant on like a Souls-like mentality and design.
And I mean, just in terms of like open world games where your character's running around with a sword, like Rise of the Ronin, Elden Ring, Black Myth Wukong, that Phantom Blade Zero game that I was supposed to be some sort of PlayStation exclusive. Shadows, Assassin's Creed Shadows coming out later this year. Tsushima 2, the Ballad of Antara, the like you said earlier, you know, it's a lot of very similar just aesthetic and vibe that are all packed into such a short window. Um, and you also wonder, is Where Winds Meet exclusive, as well as Phantom Blade Zero, as well as Rise of the Ronin, as well as this Ballad of Antara? Like, are these all exclusive?
That's
If
something
so,
I wish they were 100% transparent with, because they very rarely clarify that as much as they should.
but you said that True Achievement site usually goes through it, and you didn't see those.
Yeah, is that they weren't posted on there. The only thing that got posted on True Achievements was the Marvel game. That was it.
So it's like to me, if those games are all exclusive, what the fuck are you doing to Ghost of Tsushima 2, dude? Why are you putting that much like competition? I know Ghost of Tsushima 2 is gonna probably well outperform those games, but it's like, why even have, Phantom Blade Zero and Rise of the Ronin and Where Winds Meet and Ballad of Antara? Like, why have these competitors even in its space? Why not? Why would you not just fund even Stellar Blade to some extent? Like, I'm not saying exactly, but I don't know. It just go to different genres, different things that look different, play different, shooters, and which Concord and shit like that. But like interesting single player shooters and shit. Like get leave Ghost of Tsushima 2 alone. Let it have its entire space. That's going to be a huge franchise for you. I don't think that's smart at all. But maybe yeah, hey, they have the data and analytics that I do not have.
Yeah, it does feel like we're seeing more and more uh cannibalism happening in the games industry. Like think of I know it sold well. There's no shade at it, but the like you said, Rise of the Ronin, if that had not released directly next to Dragon's Dogma 2, if that would have released like the month earlier, it would have had so much better of a reception,
Yeah,
I feel.
totally. Yeah, because
And
it
it would have
released the
done,
same day.
yeah, exactly, which just seems mad.
It's
It's just
crazy.
craziness.
I will say, on to our next game. It's baffling for me to say this, this is one of the more original looking games of the entire show, and that's Until Dawn, a game that in its inherent nature is entirely unoriginal. It's a remake or just a re-release, seemingly. I went trying to look for like additional story content or anything like that. Of course, they're cleaning up the visuals supposedly. It doesn't really look like all that drastic of a change, but there's nothing new, actual new content added into Until Dawn, seemingly. So it looked
Did
great.
it ever get a PC release back in the day?
That is the
It
big
was just
thing.
because it didn't. Then I take it.
Yeah, no, you're
Okay.
100% right. That's the big thing. It's coming to PC. So yeah, PC audiences, you have Until Dawn.
I think it's very smart though when you think about that. Like them being able to pivot into this PC market gives them such a valid excuse to re-release these games again
Not a
and
bad point.
give them a yeah, and be like, well, we were porting it to PC anyway, and that's like higher specs. We may as well give it a PS5 port as well,
Yeah,
and triple dip as it were.
you're not wrong, actually. You're not wrong. That's not a bad point. You know, if it's not a huge expenditure of resources that like massively hinder your development, like sure, make a little bit extra money. I do understand that. My thing is like this is a bummer to me because that Ballistic Moon studio that's working on it, that new studio, it the leaked document or it was something, it was leaked that they were working on a game called Project Bates. And it's like, oh shit. You know, it's supposed to be the survival horror kind of American Psycho inspired title. And it's like, damn, okay, what do we got going on here? Um, and then it's revealed it's Until Dawn remake. It's like, what the Project Bates? What the fuck you talking about?
Yeah, they
Um,
baited you. There you go. Mission
very.
accomplished. Sony got another one.
Listen, I'm thinking like genuinely with Until Dawn, I might buy this thing just to because I want more Until Dawn. I fucking love Until Dawn. And so like there is a part of me where it's like, man, can I just is there a slight chance that they might make a sequel, which I know it's very hard to make a sequel where the ending is like a million different possibilities of who lives and who dies. Like, how do you really spin that into a sequel? But I'd be fine with just brand new characters, but of this similar scope, similar size, 8 hour, you know, adventure game, telltale decision making style adventure game. Because I know the movie's coming out. Like I'd be down for Until Dawn to become kind of like a legit franchise. I think that letting Supermassive go was a massive, massive pun intended mistake for PlayStation, man. They should have kept that studio. They're incredibly efficient. Um, but yeah, Until Dawn, fall 2024 release date. Path of Exile 2. Diablo fans, if you're looking for something that looks just like Diablo with a different name, here you go. It does have couch co-op though, which I thought was pretty fucking sick. Entering early
Yeah, and
access
it'll be
2024.
free to play as well.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, both. Path. I think I would be very shocked if they charged money for it. I'm sure there'll be like packs and stuff, like founders packs. But yeah, I'm a little bit more warmer on it than you are. I think Path of Exile really kicked Diablo out the backside to try and like innovate a little bit more because they had hardly any competition and stuff, and Path of Exile really nailed so many things so much better than any Diablo game before it. So I'm watching this with curiosity. I'll be there day one, checking it out.
Yeah, it's interesting that Sony's allowing the game to be played in early access on PlayStation. That's not something that PlayStation usually does. So it seems like you will be able to access the early access late 2024 on PlayStation. To be fair, like of course I think I'm just negative by nature, but I will say to this game's credit, it was one of the rare titles that was shown off where it's like, okay, at least it's a different genre, you know, at least it's a different genre. Um,
Yeah. So I'm being a fan in that genre. The skills looked really crisp. The the visceralness and the kick of it. They felt good and punchy. That's something that will you can't get them to feel good, and that's your entire game like loop that you're expecting someone to sit there for hundreds of hours. Then you'll just drive them out the door.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, it's definitely not a me style game whatsoever, but I have heard good things about the first Path of Exile title. So hopefully Path of Exile 2 is on par and then Diablo fans can be satiated. Silent Hill 2. Um, did you watch the 13-minute like gameplay thing at that Silent Hill showcase, the Silent Hill transmission or whatever?
I didn't. I did not. No.
So this is the weirdest scenario I've ever seen in my life. Silent Hill 2 at this state of play looked like a steaming hot pile of dog shit. At the Silent Hill transmission, the Silent Hill showcase, it looked fantastic. The 13-minute gameplay, like it looked excellent. No joke, it couldn't have been a more drastic. My expectations, because whenever you see it at the state of play, when you see Angela for the first time,
Yeah.
it
Oh
is,
my God.
I mean, I was dumbfounded looking at that character. I was like, this, you can't, you can't be doing this. Are you actually going to have character models that look like this in your game? Which they do have. That's from the game. She looks like a steaming hot pile of dog shit. But then when you go to the Silent Hill showcase, like you see James and he looks incredible. You like not incredible. None of the character models look incredible, but like way better in the full 15-minute little gameplay segment that they showed at that showcase than anything. It was just really weird. And I know that Silent Hill specifically is a game that needs a more fleshed out kind of realistic portrayal of how it's going to play. Like you need to see that laid out in a more true to form format. So a 15-minute just subdued walking through the environments and really taking in the atmosphere. Silent Hill is all atmosphere. So I just
Hmm.
think that the 15-minute showing really and I'll put in the 15-minute trailer here for people to watch. That way that they can kind of see, because I imagine most people who are tuning into this already saw the state of play. It looked horrible there. And so I
Yeah.
really want you to see like what this looks like in that other. It's crazy the difference. It's a drastic change.
Classic Konami move. Just they had the biggest stage of the two. I'm sure many more people tuned into the state of play than their transmission thing, and they were like, "Yeah, we'll just give them the scraps. They'll come to our transmission. We're Konami. We're loved, right, guys? Guys."
And it's like, dude, I mean, you're talking about millions and millions and millions of viewers for the state of play, which I'm sure they both got millions of viewers, but the disparity between the two, it's not even going to be close. The state of play is going to be 50 times bigger than the Konami Silent Hill showing. So it's like, but it once again, it's hard to show that game off in 2 minutes or whatever because it's all atmosphere. Silent Hill actively avoids action. You know what I mean? Like they try to avoid that at all costs where Resident Evil leans into it. So in a two
Yeah.
minute segment, you can see Resident Evil and be like, oh shit, Leon's drop kicking motherfuckers, Leon's roundhouse kicking and suplexing. Like it looks badass. Silent Hill is really hard to show off in 2 minute bursts. But um a few
Because
things
even in that small segment, they showed combat on that
yeah,
state of play, and it looked rough.
yeah,
It looked like because this is Bloober making it, right?
yep.
They're not really all that versed in making combat, and Silent Hill 2's combat is already really rough. So yeah, it's to shine a light on it even more, and it looked like that. It was just like that's bold.
I will throw a positive spin on that. There were some cool things that I so obviously in Silent Hill 2, you can't really aim. You know what I mean? Like you don't have full control over your aiming. In the remake, you can now aim at an enemy's knee, shoot them in the knee, they'll drop, and then it seems like you can automatically swap to your melee weapon, bash them over the head with like your pipe or whatever, and something it doesn't feel all that crunchy. It definitely has Alone in the Dark vibes in terms of the budget. It feels budget, but having just a little bit more where enemies react to where you're shooting them and shit. Like enemies will drop to their knee when you shoot them in the legs, and some of those, and you have like a dodge button that looked pretty cool
Yeah.
where enemies will lunge at you and you can kind of dodge back. And so they are adding things to the combat to spice it up a little bit. Because like you said, it's not the combat is always been fucking really rough in Silent Hill games. Um, yeah, so those were a couple cool things. I also in the full 15-minute show, it showed James walking around and like if he finds something notable in the world, he'll pull out his map and he'll actually jot it down in real
Mm.
time. So it's like adding to that level of immersion where it's like that's something I always wanted in horror games where I can manually pull out my map and even add my own notes. I don't think you can do that here, but James will, he comes across uh a locked door or whatever, he'll jot that down as something that he might need to come back to. And that, of course, adds to the accessibility, if you will, but it also adds to the immersion, in my opinion, where
Yep.
that is totally something that you would do if you were in some fucked up scenario like that.
No, so that's a good shot. I didn't see that, obviously, because I didn't watch the transmission thing. Definitely
Yeah.
feels like they should have probably cut more segments out of that and put it into the state of play.
Yeah. It, it's a really tough spot to be in for that game. I kind of feel for it because I don't really know how the hell you can show that off in 2 minutes and make it look good. But like I said, I'll have well, obviously not the full 15-minute showing here, but as we talk about Silent Hill, I'll have the 13-minute trailer running, bits of that 13-minute trailer running so that you can see that here. Listen, I don't think this game is going to set the world on fire at all. I don't think it's going to be a 10 out of 10, but I think that so when I played Alone in the Dark earlier this year, I was like, if it can hit that bar, then I'm totally happy. But I don't hold Silent Hill to the same pedigree as most people. I think all those games are good. I don't think any of them are like, world eaters.
Yeah.
So
I
if
think
it,
that's what's gonna. I think that's what's gonna really. I think it's gonna get covered, and it's gonna be pretty rough, and it's probably gonna be dragged through the dirt because of that. And that's gonna
yeah,
be really unfortunate because if this gets received extremely poorly, it might just give Konami an excuse to be like, ah, well, you clearly don't want Silent Hill, then do you? You don't. We tried to give you the Beloved 2 again, and you don't want it. So please, Konami,
yeah.
don't do that.
Konami's so weird with how they're doing their remakes in general. Metal Gear Solid 3, Silent Hill 2. It's like, motherfucker, why not make Metal Gear Solid 1, Silent Hill 1? And then like it
Because they looked over the fence at Resident Evil and they were like, they started with 2.
well, I mean, they started with 1. They remade 1
Oh,
in
yeah, yeah,
2002.
yeah.
And I
Yeah,
think that
true.
that was the tough thing with Capcom in general, where they were just like whenever they were going back to the drawing board to remake those games, I feel like they were worried about kind of stepping on their own toes and be 'cause I think they're still sort of hesitant to go back to RE1.
Yeah, I've said it multiple. I don't know how you would turn it into like a full, proper length game if you were to, because you got to think if you were to give it modern controls, how much quicker you can beat the game if you kept it almost beat for beat the same as the original and like the way you'd explore the stuff. Like you'd burn through that in like 3 hours, maybe three and a half, especially if you beat the game before. Like
Yeah.
it would need a big overhaul. That's why I said about mentioning doing like the wood section a bit more in the early bit and maybe touching on like Raccoon City as well in the opening.
I think that's the way that they would flesh out that game entirely is to really expand on the story and obviously the voice acting and shit. They would have to completely overhaul all of that, which they've been
Yeah,
doing for all the games.
give a Wesker slice. That'd be cool. Kind of like how they did the Ada thing in two.
Oh, where he's like playable or something?
Yeah.
That would
Give him
actually be
like from
dope.
his perspective and like why he's doing what he's about to do.
Yeah, that would
That'd be
actually
cool.
be so sick to play as Wesker, like some lead up moments or some just more in-depth backstory. Yeah, that would actually be really fucking cool. Um, oh, Silent Hill 2, October 8th, official release date. So we finally do have the official release date for Silent Hill 2. I I mean, I'm there day one. Like no doubt about it whatsoever. I'm there day one. But do I expect most people to be there day one with me? Probably not. Do I expect most people to be thrilled about Alone in the Dark-esque combat? Probably not. I think it looks a little bit better than Alone in the Dark. After I watched that full 15-minute thing, I was like, okay, yeah, this is gonna be good. This is gonna be for me. This is gonna be good. For people who think Silent Hill 2 is like the greatest thing ever, I don't know what to tell you. I think you just might misremember some shit. But
Yeah, I can't really comment on it. I've never had a really strong tie with Silent Hill personally. I'm a
yeah.
bit disappointed that it's not on a bigger budget personally. When I was
Yeah.
looking at it, like this would have been the opportunity to pull me into that series and get excited. And I'm just looking at it and I'm like, I'll probably pass on it,
Yeah.
to be honest.
I think if it comes in at like a 78, 79, I will be jumping for joy. I'll be like, oh my God, they did it. Because to me, that's like the highest they could possibly get. Because if reviewers send out their Silent Hill 2 fans to review this thing, it to get a 7.8 out of those motherfuckers, they complain about everything that Bloober is doing with this game. Everything. And there's some things where it's like, dude, those character models are rough in some spots. Like the Angela character model is rough. Like so rough. Um and even like cosmetic changes to the characters that make them just look so much less unique in the remake. Yeah, that shit is a bummer, but you gotta take off those rose-colored glasses. That original game has some real rough spots. And if you're gonna like judge the story super harshly because like regardless, we can jump off Silent Hill too. We can jump off
We're
Silent
still
Hill too.
kicking it before it's had the opportunity to get up. It can scurry off like one of them little nurse things that they do. They showed in the trailer
I think
and retreat.
that's gonna be the big thing. If they don't push the envelope in the way that Silent Hill 2 did, because Silent Hill 2 has some fucked up lore, fucked up
Yeah,
story content. And if they don't stay true to that, which I there's some stuff where it's just like modern day and age, like I don't know how you could possibly get away with some of the stuff that's in Silent Hill 2 today. But I and that'll be the thing where it's massively criticized for. So I kind of feel for Bloober. This is a tough task. I'll make sure to put some timestamp in here whenever we move on from Silent Hill. That's a fucking 20-minute diatribe there. Monster Hunter Wilds. So this is the first like real gameplay trailer that has ever been shown for this game. We got the Game Awards trailer that didn't really show much of anything. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm not a Monster Hunter guy whatsoever. This looks sick as fuck. Like the environmental kills and like the
and
strategic elements, moving the monsters into position and having like the boulders fall on them and shit.
you've had that scratch from
Dragon's
Dragon's
Dogma.
Dogma 2.
I was thinking the same
They've
thing.
hooked you in.
Loon, I swear to God, I was thinking the exact same thing. I was like, because Monster Hunter to me, the reason I never played it is because I heard people say the story was just like, whatever, totally non-existent.
It doesn't
And
exist. Yeah.
so previous me, pre-Dragon's Dogma 2 me, I've always been like, okay, what is my incentive to continue playing this thing? And if there's not a story dragging me along, it's like just more combat for the sake of combat. I've always been anti that. I need some sort of story. But then Dragon's Dogma 2, it's like this is some of the best combat ever. The story is utter dog shit, but I'll play through the story just because I literally love the gameplay so much. So I feel like it might be a kind of similar thing here with Monster Hunter.
Yeah, it'll be a much longer game. I will obviously put that out as a warning. You
Oof.
probably knew that already. Like, I can't even remember how long it took me to beat Monster Hunter World. That wasn't even like the DLC. It's like a good like 30 hours. Because the hunts they give you around an hour each, which sounds generous, but like you're tracking that motherfucker down, going through all the brushes and everything, and then you may be starting to win the battle, and then he'll start retreating further into the map. So it can be quite an endeavor.
I think I spent like 40 hours, I think, with Dragon's Dogma 2, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm totally willing to play a 30-hour run
This
of
looks bigger though, right? They said about it being like a proper open world.
oof. I hope not, man.
So I think it probably will extend that runtime. But but regardless, like I didn't play any of the original Monster Hunters. That like World was my first one that I dove into, and I really really enjoyed it. I've only ever so slightly dabbled into Rise, but I'll be there for Worlds. Looks
Yeah.
really cool. The new design animals that they got, the monsters look fucking amazing.
Dude, it was so cool seeing the monsters fighting each other and shit. That was just there was some the combat just seems ultra crunchy too. And
Mm,
it's like I don't know, it's so nice to see a game where you're just not rolling around on the ground. Like you got, your firearms that you're bringing out. You got, I don't even know what the hell that gun was, but you got that gun that you're wielding. You got your there was just a ton on offer that like whenever the monster's about to eat you and that parry, that crunchy
mm.
parry at the end, and then you're using the sword to like hold that big ass beast, hold its mouth open from just preventing it from engulfing you in one goddamn bite. Just there was the scale of this game looked really, really sick. Um yeah, I'm probably down to check this out as well. And then we move on. Did you have anything else you wanted to hit on with Monster Hunter Wilds?
No, I'll just like throw one last bit. It was the strongest game of the showcase for me. As the what looked good and probably appealed to me the most. But the downside to it is something we already knew. And that
Right.
always kind of like takes the wind out of something like that. I'd much rather be that excited for something I've not heard before than because I already knew that I wanted this. You've just further pushed my opinion into that realm. So yeah.
Totally. Yeah. And I will say, like, I know that we're talking about the story being non-existent but there were like some cutscenes in this, and I
Oh
know
yeah,
it's probably
there's cutscenes in World, but
okay.
it would be very generous to say that there's a story. It
Okay.
ever so slightly like guides you through as to why you're going to these next areas and stuff because it has cutscenes in World as well.
Yeah. And listen, I'm not trying to change like I don't want uh, games should do what they do, and if they don't appeal to me, that is what it is. Um because like something like a Dragon's Dogma 2, like just do what you do. It's that game would probably improve drastically from just totally cutting out its entire story and just you have no idea why you're doing what you're doing, but you keep doing it. Um, but yeah, it I'm probably there for Monster Hunter Wilds. I'm probably there. The environmental,
Day one?
yeah, probably. Probably. That should after Dragon's Dogma 2, give me combat that's not a Souls-like, that's like genuinely interesting and dynamic like that, which this doesn't look quite on the level of Dragon's Dogma 2 with like scaling up the monsters. Can you do all that shit? Can you like scale the
Yeah, that's where it drew inspiration from.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Nice,
that's what
dude.
was the whole that was the whole backbone of the original Dragon's Dogma's combat, and then they obviously expanded upon it in Dragon's Dogma 2. Especially like
Nice.
World, from what I understood, like it's some of the cleanest combat in the series. Like it's really, really good.
So I can jump up on enemies, climb up their backs, and stab them in
Yeah,
the head. Oh, dude, I'm
yeah.
there day one. Yeah, I'm absolutely there day one. No doubt about.
You just like jumping on people's heads and stabbing them. You
Dude, that
psychopath.
is like the most saddest. That's one of the most satisfying things I've ever experienced in a game ever, is being able to climb up those big ass beasts and just dagger the shit out of them. Oh, that's the most fun thing you could possibly do in a video game. I'm so yeah, I'm there for Monster Hunter Wilds day one without a doubt, just for that style of combat. Would you say on par with Dragon's Dogma? Like, which combat would you say is superior?
Oh, it's so difficult to give a direct, just like one or the other,
Yeah.
because Dragon's Dogma lets you explore like a world and you're finding gear and stuff, and your stats are also going up at the same time. Monster Hunter, there's no leveling progression at all.
Oh,
It's all based. You never get like +5 strength or whatever. Everything is your weapon. That is it. Everything is just your weapon. You get like armor pieces as well, and but that's just like a defense up. There's no like you get through a hunt and then it's like you're level 63 +5 strength. There's none of that at all.
dude, my
Your
hype is
main
going up as you
backbone,
speak.
your main backbone of progressing is you're hunting these monsters to gain them materials. That's the whole drive, so that then you can go to the next hunt because it's all broken down to like stars and stuff in difficulty,
And
and then it will
so,
show like
like,
once you collect them parts, you build that new weapon. It looks completely different as well. It's got really good visual design.
so this is like your mind is going to win you these encounters, strategizing,
Yeah,
planning, scoping out where they move around and being like, okay. And I even kind of noticed that in this little slice where they had the big ass monster trailing them and he had like a trap set and it dropped that big ass boulder down on the monster. It was like, so it's more about, okay, I see that these monsters, they end up trekking through this swampland right here. I can set some sort of device here that will wrap them up and I can go over and do a bunch of damage before they break out of these chains or what, I'm just throwing shit out there. I've never played the game, but like, so it's stuff like that where you're
yeah. You have
strategically,
traps and yeah, you have traps and Monster Hunter World and stuff.
yep, I'm there day one. No doubt about it. So you said that was your game of the show?
Yeah, to be.
Well, it is now time to talk about my game of the show. Never in my wildest dreams would I have expected this. Astro Bot. This looked insane. This looks fucking incredible. I wonder if it's going to do well commercially because I this is about as fun as you could possibly make a 3D platformer look, in my opinion. Incredible level diversity. The boss fights look varied just in terms of scale and size, but also like complexity and mechanics. They all seem to be quite a bit different. You're flying around on this like fucking PlayStation ship, roaming around. Like it
I
just
love
it
that they're leaning into that. I love that
yeah,
they've just he is the mascot. They put him in the PS5, like hard coded him into that console with his little like game that they gave people, and it's just yeah, it's really cool that they're leaning into that.
totally, dude. You're seeing him as like Kratos and Nate Drake
Yeah,
and Parappa the Rapper and Eco and Shadow of the Colossus. Like they had so many callbacks to just classic PlayStation characters. And that's the thing where I wonder what this thing is going to do commercially because we it's so hard to track what this game is set to even be on a sales level because the only real evidence we have is the VR title that sold like 200,000 copies. And you can't really go off anything VR. And then you have the pack-in game where it's like you can't really. So this is
yeah.
it.
There's not everybody's not gonna be yeah. That came free with the console, and then obviously the VR title was niche. Although the people that played the VR title held it extremely highly.
Yes.
So it definitely feels like these. I reckon the early reviews will come in and people will be like, "This is it, guys. Like this is probably the strongest platformer we've had in like a few years. Like, I think it could rival Crash and stuff like that come out."
When I was looking at that, like a part of me was going, listen, I'm not a Nintendo guy. So go ahead and throw your stones and all this, but like does that kind of look better than Mario?
To me, it did, yeah. But that's the thing. I've always, it's never been my thing. Like, it's not something like I probably myself won't be trying it out, but I can look at it and be like, I respect what that is. That looks really strong in that genre,
Yeah.
and to me, it looks stronger than Mario's games that have been coming out recently, like Odyssey and stuff like that.
Yeah. I hate to make judgments like that in the moment because I've never played it, but it's just like it kind of to me that looks almost unprecedented. That level of quality in a 3D platformer, especially in 2024. That's just such rarefied air, and that's the thing, man. When we're talking about this show, you're seeing so much of the same shit that we've been seeing for
Yeah,
years. And it's just like, okay, another this, another remake, another this, another that. And then you get this, and it's like, that is unlike anything. That right there is unlike anything else on the market right now, other than Mario, which we get, when was Mario Odyssey? 2017?
yeah, quite a few years ago. Yeah.
This might be something, man. This might be something.
It's really ironic though when you actually think about it, because you were saying like we're being hammered by all these games that are completely just run into the ground by how much overexposure and saturation there is. A fucking 3D platformer is a breath of fresh air now, when that used to be the thing that was pumped out like every. It's
Very
so like
true.
industry trends are crazy, man. Because we saw the big boom of like the return of like 2D platformers a few years back, where they kind of went away for a long time, like 8-bit and 16-bit, and now they're bloody everywhere. I've just found that funny.
Yeah. No, it's 100% true. It's like I just always wonder why can't we just get a little bit of a lot? Like why can't we just get a little bit of all the genres opposed to
Because they pendulum swing so much. If one heavily undersells, then that's it. They just
yeah,
consider it like a complete. Look how long it took Prince of Persia to like recover and
right.
finally claw a new like entry into the series. Like it's crazy. Once they feel like it's running out of steam, they just bench that. Like, yeah, we'll just sit on that IP for like a decade and a half.
Well,
Like,
and
my God.
it's I always bring it up, but like the GTA clones of the PS2, PS3 era, they were in abundance, and now it is vacant, barren wasteland. There is not a single well, the Saints Row game that came out in 2022 that totally bombed, but like that's
That
it.
went to stand up and got slapped down immediately.
And
And it wasn't even Rockstar that did it, it was everybody else.
the thing that's so crazy, Loon, is it actually still ended up selling okay. But I think that just shows that there's such a yearning for that style of game that people even put up with it despite the
Yeah.
atrocious writing and the fucking total disassociation from what the Saints Row games used to be. Um, but yeah, Astro Bot, dude, it's getting a physical copy. They have that like big bold in the trailer at the end of it, stamped there, sitting there, showing you Astro looking pretty on a box. I am really curious about the price tag. Very, very curious about that. I think if you position this correctly, 39.99, you have a mega, mega hit on your hands.
Yeah, it'd be
Well,
interesting to see how far they dip into greed for it.
yeah. $70 this thing it dies the day it comes out.
They might put it at like 50, I reckon.
50 be fine.
Maybe 60. I don't know. I don't. Maybe they learn with Helldivers though that you can have something that's fairly low entry barrier, and that will help it shift even more units. But then you have that corporate side of greed where they're like, well, if they liked it and they were going to pick it up anyway, what's $10 more? What's $15 more and stuff? So yeah, that's good that it's getting a physical copy though. That's a
Yeah,
nice middle
man.
finger to Microsoft while they're
Um,
sitting there with Hellblade 2, this cinematic masterpiece that's tied to digital only, so therefore it has a finite life
yeah.
potentially.
I it's so a game like that, it's like, man, why would you not put that thing on outfit? It might be the same thing that they're going to do with limited run later whenever it comes to other platforms. If it ends up coming to other platforms, they just do like a big kind of, here's it available on Switch 2 and PS5 and also Series, and maybe they do another batch of releases like that. Um, but yeah, a game of this scale still getting supported physically, like that really makes my heart happy. I'll be there day one supporting this thing, even if it's not something that I end up really clicking with when I play it, because I played the pack-in game. I was like, this is cute, but that's kind of where it ended with me. The character of Astro, I could not possibly find less appealing. A fucking robot is your mascot platformer, like that can't be your mascot. But I, gameplay over everything, and that gameplay looks unbelievably fun. So I'm there, man.
I think I'd swing a little bit further the other way. I think his design perfectly complements what they want him to do. Have a blank slate canvas. Because like you said, he dressed up as like Kratos and everything. If you can
Like
keep him as
Lego.
bland as possible, he can just be whatever you want him to be.
That is true.
Uh,
Yeah.
I don't mind them.
Yeah.
Cool guy.
Definitely serves its purpose. We'll see. We'll see what this game does. It's really all dependent on this game because we have no other real data to track. It's all VR is not because if you look at the VR sales, you're like, oh shit, this thing is gonna bomb. But then it's like, well, 200,000 VR sales is like a world beater. That's
Mhm.
like as good as you could possibly ever expect any VR game to sell. Um,
Did he get a date?
yeah, September 6th. My bad.
Okay. Wow, that's
September.
really soon. Oh
Yes.
yeah.
Yes. And
Oh yeah.
this
Kudos to Sony.
the one first party single player game that they released. This single-handedly saves PlayStation, single-handedly saves PlayStation from not having a single player game this year. This is the only first party single player game that's going to release all year. And I went back and looked through PlayStation first party releases throughout the years. 2015 was the last year that a studio that they owned did not put out a single player game. So we're going back 9 years. And even that year, you had Bloodborne and like the Order 1886, which, sure, you have Final Fantasy VII Rebirth and Rise of the Ronin, and you have heavy hitters this year, Silent Hill 2 in the third party exclusive range and second party exclusive range. Um, and I guess we can transition to the business side of things just real quick because uh, at the end of the day, this state of play didn't do a ton for me. The fact that Sony's first party output is pretty abysmal this year is a bummer to me. But then we look at the business side of things, and I don't even know what to say or how to like complain other than from a personal, consumer perspective. Like I want to see these first party games. But that's personal. That's me as a video game player. But as like an investor, if you're invested, if you're looking at this from the business side of things, it's like, I guess I just need to shut the fuck up because PlayStation's more profitable than they've ever been. That this generation is more profitable than any other PlayStation generation ever. And we're what 4 years into it? We still have another 4 years to go. More profitable than any other generation ever. 4 years in. And so it's like, you don't even have to fucking release games. This has been one of the worst generations ever in terms of first party output for PlayStation, and they're more profitable than ever. So it's like,
It's the Valve effect. Look at Valve like in 2005 releasing game after game after game, and then you hit like 2010 onwards. They they had no reason to because they were just generating so much money elsewhere. They were like, well, why are we going to pump in $100 million into a game when we can just sit on our hands for a week and make that money in a week by doing nothing? So, it's not as dire as, we sometimes make it out to be. Like they're sitting strong. Like they're recouping every time someone swipes their card on that PlayStation Store, they're getting kickback from that. All these really easy transitional games to be put on PC, they're scooping up all the profits from that, getting their cut. Like they're in a strong spot. It's just their their identity that they built up over the course of the PS4 era is heavily fading. Like that core
Yes.
value of strong single player experiences every single year, or at least every other year, has diminished completely.
Well, it used to be multiple per year. Like it that's the thing, Loon, that worries me. I wonder, okay, are we in a spot right now where it's just the PS4 goodwill carrying the PS5 to the heights that it's at right now? And I'm hoping to God that's the case, because that would still, I would still have faith in consumer behavior if that's the case. Because it's like, sure, after a decade of nonstop heavy hitter banger after banger after banger, sure, put some goodwill in. That's what I did. I bought the PS5. I was like, yeah, they're gonna God of War, Horizon, Last of Us, the new IP. Like, I'll be there checking out all that shit day one. I gotta have a PS5 for that. But I hope to God that it's not the like the Apple effect where it's just the device, where all that matters is the logo and not the content. Because if we do have a year in 2024, let's say Avowed is a smash hit, Indiana Jones is a smash hit, um, Doom. Well, Doom's not this year. Is there something else in Xbox's lineup that I'm forgetting for this year? I think there's a couple other, like Starfield Shattered Space. Maybe
Yeah.
that is a massive turnaround. Um,
We can hope.
let's just say Xbox has a crazy output over the next couple years, because we have seen in the past, like PS3 had a really rough start. And then when you get Uncharted and Infamous and Last of Us, yeah, it's going to pick up. Xbox is having an abysmal start with the Series X, but it's like, is that because it's coming off of one of the worst consoles of all time with the Xbox One? Are they really struggling to get that goodwill back? And can they build that goodwill back as Sony is doing nothing? They are doing nothing. Like, Xbox could have a year with Hellblade, Shattered Space, Avowed, Indiana Jones. Like, can you build that goodwill back?
I think they're also in absolutely no rush because them statistics came out. It's like almost 50% of people of their entire consumer base is still on the PS4.
Yep.
So why? Because people are like, oh, these games are getting, PS4 ports and stuff like that. Like the latest one was the Call of Duty getting a last gen thing. They're not going to leave 50% of their potential revenue off on the table. And there's probably a massive, massive hesitation as to if we fully well, like, no, everything now moving onward is going to be next gen only. You may just have extremely stubborn players that, will just stay on that PS4, and then you're just limited to whatever releases on the PS4. So,
The only thing with that is I think that the people who are still on the PS4 are pretty much like the Call of Duty, Fortnite, 2K, Madden crowd. Because but I will, to your point, Loon, like, what is the must play current gen title? Is there one? Like, for the casual audience, is there a
that
must
that
play?
isn't available on PS4.
Exactly.
All you've got is what, Demon Souls?
That's not it though. Not to like
No, but
that's
that's what I
the
mean. Like Demon Souls is the native PS5 game.
I mean, you have like
What else?
Spider-Man 2, I guess, would be the closest to getting the mass market to transition.
Was that not released on PS4?
Nah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you have stuff. You have Final Fantasy 16, Spider-Man 2, Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, Returnal, but like Demon Souls, but like Final
But
Fantasy 7 Rebirth.
Spider-Man 2 did killer numbers,
Oh,
like ridiculous numbers. So if that's not moving the needle, nothing will. Like that is the thing that heavily put PlayStation on the map as well for the PS4 generation towards the end. Like Spider-Man was outrageously successful in
and
how
so is
well that shipped.
yeah.
So if that's not convincing the other 50% that, oh yeah, I'll because they can play all their PS4 titles on their PS5, so they won't be losing any titles. They will just be gaining. But that in itself is not even a big enough reason. Even if they played Spider-Man 1 and enjoyed it, that's not a big enough reason for them to like that's crazy.
It is crazy. I will say to Spider-Man 2's credit, it's selling like hotcakes. It sold 11 million copies. It's doing incredibly, incredibly well. But I think that comes back to the same thing. It's Spider-Man is the closest they have to getting that mass market in, the casual audience in. But I think Spider-Man 1 sold like 30 million copies, somewhere in that range. So Spider-Man 2 is already on track to do that. So I think they already have that fan base over. So it's like, is that even? Because I don't even think it's close. That's close to mass market appeal. It's close. But I don't even know if that is the level of like must play current gen title that I'm talking about for the mass market. And like I'm looking to the I think that you have a real shot in America with NCAA 2025. That is a very big shocker to me that that's not coming to last gen systems. That's only coming to PS5 and Series X, while Madden and 2K and all, FIFA, all that shit comes to last gen. NCAA only coming to
Yeah,
current gen.
they milk them FIFA games like 2 generations behind. There were still FIFA titles being released on the PS2 and like the
Yeah.
PS in the PS4 generation. Like it's
It
crazy.
Yeah, it's batshit. And that NCAA game being only next gen or current gen, at least for the time being, that could shift. I mean, that's going to be a juggernaut in America, but that's in America. And then when you think global, the only thing on the horizon for the mass market is Grand Theft Auto 6.
It's what
And
a lot of people are saying they're holding out for the reason to buy it.
can't blame them.
Because there's
Eh,
no rush.
no.
There's no because there's not an the next PS5 is not going to be out when GTA 6 drops. The Pro will drop, I reckon, by then.
Yeah,
They
the Pro
might
will.
try and coincide it with that. That'll be the thing to get people in the door.
Yep. Yep. Um, yeah, the industry in general is in kind of a weird spot, just in terms of getting that getting that player base off the last gen systems. But I think it's always kind of been that way in some respect. Like the PS, I would imagine the PS2, if they had that, if they had those analytics at the time to track the PS2 monthly active users versus the PS3, I think for maybe the entire lifespan of that generation, the PS2 might have been more active. It's just we just have more data on that stuff now.
GTA 4 was the thing that made a lot of people jump ship,
Yep.
was when that came out. But I think the thing that we're also forgetting is how much money people have invested in like microtransactions and stuff.
Yes.
They're they, they're very hesitant because what was it? GTA 5, was it the PS3 and 360 servers got shut down
I'm not
very
sure.
recently, I believe. They finally shut them down, which then forces people to move up. And that's the only way you're going to get them to move on is by giving them no other choice but to move on. Because
Yeah.
a lot of the people will just stay there because they're happy with it.
Well, and I guess that actually ties us to another group of video game players who don't like to leave their ecosystem, and that is the PC audience. Herman Hulse was talking about how their live service games will go day and date to PC, while the majority of their single player titles will, remain console exclusive for a couple years and be. I think he used the term strategic. They'll be
Hmm.
released more strategically on PC, which I think they'll just keep doing what they're doing. Release God of War Ragnarok 2022. It comes to PC 2024. 2 year. Some games that are maybe not quite that level of juggernaut release the next year on PC. This is a thing where I've seen the PC fan base just outraged about this. Like, this is kind of silly to me. It's like, dude, this is a company with the name PlayStation, releasing their games on PlayStation, and then you get them a year later if you don't want to buy the PlayStation.
At least you know you're bloody getting these titles. I've been waiting for fucking Final Fantasy remake for how long?
Yeah,
So, uh, it it's just the entitlement.
it's very, yeah.
I'm very trying to like not be rude with that, but it is. It's of course they're going to not day and date their single player games because they know how strong FOMO is. If they've given you The Last of Us now, right? The Last of Us is on PC.
Yeah.
They have no reason to put part three on their day one. Because if you were that, head over heels for the series, that's a real big incentive for you to just go out and buy a PlayStation 5. The majority of them are not going to do that. But even if five of them did that, that's five extra copies, 5 units, five extra copies, and then they will just capitalize on that PC play base a year down the line. They're not losing anything. This is what people don't understand is that it's a win-win situation for Sony. They will eventually get that player base and get their cut, but they can also dangle it in front of you for a year to see how much you value your current platform, or are you going to bend in and just buy a console because you don't want to wait?
Well, you know what you do lose? You lose the fact that, okay, right now you have 50 million people in your ecosystem. If all your shit goes day and date over there, how many of those people are like, all right, I don't need a PlayStation 5 anymore? So then you end up losing that 30% cut of
Buy
potentially
Xbox.
exactly.
It's where we're at right now.
It's the
Like so
same
many
exact
people,
thing.
yeah. So
Yeah. It
it's not even a hypothetical. Like a lot of people are saying that they're jumping ship and
well, I mean,
threatening to jump ship.
how many times do you see people say, and this is like you cannot argue this when you see people say, well, no, why would I buy an Xbox? I have a PC. Or why would I
Yeah,
buy an Xbox? I'm going to get a PC. Like it's an inarguable concept where everything is available on PC. So Xbox loses out on that 30% cut from all those players. Now, you can say the Xbox One generation was so abysmal that they had to transition and figure something out. Cool. They did that. They tried that. And it varying levels of success. I guess we'll see how it ends up panning out. But if I'm Sony, I'm not looking at what they're doing and going, hey, let's copy that. It doesn't seem to be going too well from the outside looking in.
yeah.
So,
You don't want to pursue a day and date. They don't like day and date to begin with. They don't want their first parties day one into their service of whatever it is, the PS Plus stuff.
yeah,
They don't want to be doing that because they know that's money on the table because they know their players will buy them.
totally. And listen, from a fan perspective, from a consumer perspective, absolutely. I release it all everywhere. PC, fucking, I do like console exclusives. That's the one thing I will say. I think console exclusives are important. I want the ecosystems to feel different, but release it on PC, sure. Put it on PlayStation Plus, sure. I could not give a fuck less, but from a business mind, you absolutely like releasing it on PlayStation Plus makes no sense. Releasing it day and date on PC makes no sense. It live service makes all the sense in the world because the microtransaction that is going to happen post purchase or if it's a free to play game post download. You're going to get the majority of your money once the player is in there, and you want as big of a player pool as humanly possible to milk them motherfuckers dry. I get that. But for single player, there's no incentive to put those games on PC day and date at all, other than the initial software sales, which will, in my opinion, inevitably kill the value of your console. And then you end up losing 30% cut of tens of millions of players potentially. It just doesn't make sense. At least where we're at right now, it doesn't make sense to me.
Well, on top of that, the double dipping, you're able to charge full price for it a year down the line where
Twice.
it doesn't. You see this like they're putting the Shin Megami Tensei 5 on PS5, right, and Xbox. The August or September, one of the months. They're charging full price for that. That's I know they've technically shifted a few things up and changed a few things, but that's a game that's been on the Switch for years
Yep.
in its core foundation, that's not worth that anymore because it's fallen in value because it's been available. But they can turn around and say, well, it's the first time you guys are experiencing it on your platform, so it's a new game. $60, please, and we'll fork it up.
Yep. I think it's worth sacrificing software sales to ensure that your platform, your ecosystem is as strong and as large as possible. I really do think so. I don't think that the software sales from PC would offset the opportunity cost isn't the right word. I don't think the sales from PC would offset the value that PlayStation would immediately lose if those games, if everything was available day and date. Because, like you said, we've seen it with Xbox. Um, Now, probably the most interesting thing that I found from all of this is they showed like a chart of what their first party teams are working on, and they have it separated off as single player narrative focus, partner studios, evolving slash multi-genre, and live service focus. And there's just a few tidbits here that I found wild. Um, First off, Sucker Punch is listed under single player studios. So that restores a lot of faith for me personally, because I was really worried about Ghost 2, being greenlit under the Jim Ryan initiative after the Iki Island and the multiplayer and all that shit that was added on later to Ghost of Tsushima. I was like, oh man, are they going to bog this shit down with live service elements? Does not seem like that's the case. They have Tsushima or Sucker Punch strictly under single player narrative focused games. Um, they also have Bin Studio is listed under evolving slash multi-genre, and they're not listed under the live service banner. So this is hard to read because I think it's like almost confirmed that Ben does have a live service game in the works, unless that was canceled. Or do they have two games in development, and that's why they're under the evolving or slash multi-genre, where it's like, okay, we have a service game and we also have another game in
Yeah, that
development.
might make sense.
Um, and then we have Fire Sprite, the team that was rumored to be working on a single player horror game for PS5, and they're listed under single player. So uh, we can at least confirm that that is one team that is, a recent acquisition, and we can at least confirm that one part of that rumor is correct, that they were working on a single player horror game. We at least know it's single player. We don't know anything else about it, but it is good to see that, okay, there's still some recent acquisitions that are bearing some sort of single player results in the future. And this is one I think you're going to be interested in, Loon. This is the weirdest, probably the weirdest overall to me, is that they have Bluepoint in this side category called Partner Studio. I'm really curious what the fuck that means, because they're in there with Valkyrie Entertainment and Nixus, who pretty much Nixus does all the PC ports, and Valkyrie Entertainment is pretty much just an assist studio. So it's like, why the fuck is Bluepoint in there? The team that made the Demon Souls remake and we're supposed to be working on some new IP. Why the fuck are they in the partner studio category?
Maybe that new IP isn't going too well, and maybe they want to try and shift them back to what they're successful at doing. Think about, highly doubt this will happen, but think about if they were to get like a big budget remake of, like, say, like Legacy of Kain or something, tie down a contract with Embracer and stuff. So Embracer are looking to get whatever deals they can possibly muster out of anybody at this point. So
Yeah.
scooping up any old IP and then remaking it's their bread and butter.
Yeah, I mean, I guess looking at it that way, I didn't really even consider, because when I see them next to Nixus and Valkyrie, I'm like, has Bluepoint transitioned into like a support studio? Are they just like porting games and assisting on other big teams' project? Like that was the thing that worried me. But if you're actually, that does make some sense, as in partnering with other studios, not necessarily partnering to assist on our projects, or partnering to create a game that is something we already own. like a Sly or a Jack or a Resistance or an Uncharted or, these games that are just kind of languishing,
Yeah.
even a God of War game after Demon Souls, like absolutely they can create a God of War spinoff where you play as Atreus or whatever. Um,
Yeah.
but that's one to definitely keep your eye on. I would say to people out there is what the fuck is going on with Blue Point. And let's see here. Is there anything else? I'm looking over this list real quick. Anything else that kind of stands out to me? I do think that Media Molecule being on this evolving slash multi-genre list is interesting. I'm guessing that's probably still to do with Dreams, though, so I'm not going to read into that too much. Because they literally just ended support on Dreams. But yeah, in your single player narrative focus, you have Asobi, you have Insomniac, you have Santa Monica, you have Sucker Punch, and you have Naughty Dog. So it is good to know that Santa Monica is at no risk of falling into the evolving slash multi-genre or live service approach. And Housemarque, you also have in the single player narrative focus, which I guess would Returnal, I guess, would kind of consider as single player narrative focus. So maybe it's just more of something in that ilk. But yeah, that's pretty much the main takeaways I had from the PlayStation business update. Um, yeah. Was there anything else that you saw rolling around about the state of PlayStation business that you found interesting?
No, I don't believe so. It's just like you said, it's nice to see that they're not completely burying single player
Right.
experiences. Because that was the big worry, obviously. A lot of these studios like Naughty Dog had live service games in the work. Just let them do what they know they can do. Stop
Totally.
stop pivoting them into something they're not. This is what ran BioWare into the ground really damn quick. Giving them a
100%.
project and forcing them to work on it when they have no idea how to execute that.
Yeah, I agree 100%. So yeah, that's the state of PlayStation. They're making a whole lot of money, making very few games. Um, Now we go into let's talk a little bit about Avowed. Avowed will be running on Unreal Engine 5. They made the switch recently, and Jez Corden mentioned this in a tweet, just kind of passively. I uh, I did not know this. Did you know that Avowed was in UE5?
No, but I know a lot of what was it? A lot of the transitioning from the previous Unreal Engine things that people were making into Unreal Engine 5 is really easy.
Hmm.
Apparently, it's a really easy process, and because a lot of people are like, "Oh, it's going to be delayed. It's so streamlined now." So it's literally taken, maybe a couple weeks of tweaking things as they've transitioned over. But no, I didn't know that. I don't know if that's gonna really. They need to polish up that combat. I know we've said
Yes.
it time and time again. Like you can make it try and look as pretty as you can, but that combat needs to be a hell of a lot better and a higher standard.
Yeah.
And the art style of the game didn't really lend itself to being really all that pretty. Just the way that everything is designed, it was not on par with that cinematic opening trailer that they showed.
God, no.
Like that looked incredible with the runes magic as they're doing it with the hands and everything. Like it's clearly not that. Clearly a hell of a lot more scaled back.
Well, so we know like it because in the tweet it says, was it already known that Avowed had moved to Unreal Engine 5.3 with support from Xbox Tech slash the Coalition? We know the Coalition, they're masters of Unreal Engine. The Matrix Tech demo was crazy. Um, they seem to be assisting all their teams. State of Decay is supposedly running on Unreal Engine State of Decay 3. So the Coalition are craftsmen within this engine. So and but the thing, like you said, I think the environments actually looked okay in the last showcase, the last direct with Avowed, but the character models look like dog shit. A lot of the animation within the combat looked like dog shit. But I did think the environments look kind of a couple of shots were like really, really impressive. And now I guess it kind of makes sense why they were so impressive.
Yeah, it just needs a little bit of polishing.
Yep.
Um, if it does release this year, I just hope they just don't drop the ball with it. They need something with substance. Like as beautiful as Hellblade looked, it was way, way, way too short and way, way, way too simple
Yep.
to do anything for anybody really.
Loon, what are you thinking on Avowed? I know that it's not it's not out. We don't know the release date. We haven't seen much of it since that last direct. What are you kind of thinking this thing's going to come in at when it finally drops the embargo, when it's lifted? What do you think this thing's going to come in at review wise? Are you thinking 70s, 80s, 90s even?
Well, I think New Vegas was like an 8.1, 8.2, I believe. Like it fell short of getting them that bonus, and then the Outer Worlds was a little bit higher than that, about 8.5. If it can hit 8.3 or above, I think that's a win for them.
Totally.
They need something in the eights.
Did you see that Hellblade 2 was at 8.1 on Metacritic?
Yes, absolutely delusional. Like, it's just madness to me. I've it's so unbelievably divided.
Yeah, it
People
is.
like ridiculously like you had some people that like really really enjoyed it, and like I can respect that, but
For
it's
sure.
at the same time you're telling me that the amount of resources and time that they devoted to this for it to be what it was, you're telling me you would be fine with it staying like that and not like expanding out at all, not looking at that trailer on the beach and thinking like, you know, what are we gonna like be more of a Viking raiding group and stuff? Is there gonna be a more engaging gameplay? You were happy with just sprinting back and throwing free spears? That was enough for you?
Yeah, I kind of I'm in alignment with you 100%.
That's not an 8 out of 10 game for me, I'm afraid. Like
Yeah.
I severely, you know, pan like David Cage games. Quantum, like I think that they are heavily overrated. So, they blow that game out. They eat Hellblade alive, and there's hardly any gameplay because at least the story and length is good enough to carry that as an experience.
Well, in those games, honestly, they kind of feel in a weird way more like games because you
Mm.
actually get to impact the story with what you're choosing to do, and you can really only do that in the game space. I know they've attempted it a couple times in film, but like, um, yeah, it's I guess we can save this for what I've been playing, but I've recently gone on an FMV kick. I never even knew that there were games like this, where there's games like those Quantic Dream games, but they're just FMVs.
Shitloads of a team called Wales
Whales.
Interactive makes tons of them. The Late Shift is like one of the greatest titles that they've ever done.
I just finished
Well,
it like 2 days ago.
it's incredible.
It's so good. I played that and I played Bloodshore. I actually played Bloodshore twice. I was just so curious. Like they're not bad, man. They're listen, it's not fucking world class. You're right. Late Shift is kind of I'm not saying it's good acting. Like it's good acting, it's good writing, it's compelling from start to end. Like that Late Shift is excellent. Bloodshore a little bit less, but those games are cool, man.
I think it was they were college projects, if I'm not mistaken. And then they like funded it out and it started getting like traction. I could be wrong about that. It was either the Wales Interactive or another FMV team that does it. And it was them utilizing like them learning these things and getting that education and stuff like that. And they were like, well, why don't we're putting so much time into this as like a project? Why don't we just like see if we can get like funding to make it into like an actual game? 'Cause that's what I mean. Like the acting isn't, you know, not Hollywood A class, but
Right.
it's good enough. It's a good enough budget.
Yeah. It's I think I'm gonna try because they're all on like deep sales. I think I'm just gonna play all of them. think I'm gonna try all them bitches out. Like I'm totally because I've talked to you about this before, where it's like in bits because I just finished Red Dead 1, and that's a juggernaut. And then in between that, it's really nice to have those wind down games. So I think I'm just gonna buy all of them, have them sitting there. It's just like wind down games in between bigger stuff.
Yeah, I can't. I did late shift. I didn't do Bloodshaw. I played a very, very short amount of the bunker. That was a little bit too slow for me in comparison. But they also have the infectious madness of Dr. Decker is another one that they've done.
Um,
Um,
is the complex them? I bought that.
I
I
don't believe so. Yeah, the Complex 2020. Yep.
okay,
They also
cool.
did a Maid of Scare. And I don't know
Yep.
if they made that new one. Is it Scare Ritual?
Supposedly that game's kind of sick.
It's crazy because it's like a Call of Duty Zombies game, and it just completely out of left field. I didn't expect that from them. It's like, oh, this is the FMV team, and they've made like one of the strongest like Call of Duty Zombies clones to
I'm gonna
date. It's just
I'm
like,
gonna start following that team more, man.
okay,
Yeah, they're weird.
yeah,
They're
they
interesting.
yeah they got some creative talent over there. It's really interesting.
Well, Loon, speaking of creative talent, these are the laziest transitions. Just taking what you say and repeating it to set up something new. Uh, but we got some updates on Resident Evil. Dust Golem kind of went on a little bit of a rant here on Twitter, and I'll read it out for the people at home. Dust Golem is a fairly reliable Resident Evil leaker, survival horror leaker in general. He said, fuck it. Or they said, fuck it. Don't know. Fuck it. I'm choosing to be the one to burst the bubble in a bigger way of what's going on with Resident Evil. First, I would wipe the expectations of RE9 being announced this summer, period. Oh, first, I would announce Dude, I'm really short bussing it up today. First, I would wipe the expectations of RE9 being announced this summer, period. The initial murmurs I heard, I now do believe are right, and RE9's announcement is further away than this upcoming summer. Sorry for the back and forth on that. That's my fault. RE1 remake. Oh, wow. RE1 remake rumors are bullshit. As far as I know, RE1 is not in any form of development at all right now. Whoa, okay. RE5 is not actively in development now either. It's been funny seeing this.
What
Okay,
are they working on then?
RE5 is not actively in development right now either. It's been funny seeing this be what people think is happening publicly. RE9 is pushed back to late 2025/2026. If everything I've heard is correct, which I fully believe it is, and I know others have hinted this, and I'm not the first one to say this publicly, actually, oh, and I'm not the first to say this publicly. Actually, just it's not okay. Let me fucking strap in here.
It's early, man. It's early.
Well, I don't know if this is on me. Do you have this on your phone?
What
It's the 3 out of 4. It's the bottom line.
three? I've got the 4 out of 4.
Go
Three out
go
of four.
up.
Here we go.
Okay. Let me if everything I've heard is correct, which I fully believe it is, and I know others have hinted this, and I'm not the first to say this publicly, actually just it's not caught on. There's actually a remake of Resident Evil 0 and Code Veronica in development right now.
Yeah,
I've
that was
talked
like a really, really extended way of explaining that.
okay, I was just making sure. And listen, no, dude, no,
That was him sidestepping, starts, and then landing the punch.
yeah. So, and no shade at any, dude. I'm horrible with grammar and tight. Like I can barely get out a sentence just speaking. So no shade, but so he's pretty much saying if everything he's heard is correct, and he's not the first to say this publicly, but there's a remake of Resident Evil 0 and Code Veronica in development right now. He says I've talked to many others behind the scenes about this. At this point, it's something I heard over a year ago. Think it was going to get out whether I was the one to say it or not, and that's about it. Um, so Resident Evil 0 and Code Veronica in development. Let's start there, Loon. That is a massive, massive, massive shock and kind of a pleasant surprise to me. How do you feel about the news that Zero and Code Veronica are the remakes in development, and not one and not five right now?
I mean, I think I've said this like a ton. Like I would want them to just get one out.
Yeah.
It just makes sense to just get that done. So then you have one, two, three, four, and then you can choose whether or not you want to do five and six again. But like at least get these original ones done. But it's these are like they're like side spin-offs, aren't they? Veronica and Zero.
Yeah.
Like they're not considered 100%
Oh,
mainline
well,
entries.
yeah, no, they are definitely. I mean, Code Veronica, well, Zero sets everything up, but Code Veronica is Claire, Wesker, and Chris. Those are, like the main characters in Resident Evil in general. Wesker obviously being like the main villain for the entire franchise. Those are like I would say Code Veronica is more mainline than some of the mainline games.
Okay. Yeah, so but I would have wanted them to get remade at some point. It's not saying that I wouldn't want them to get touched up at all. I would have preferred one to be done first, personally, and then these two come after. But as you said, like a lot of people were very, I think you didn't think they were going to touch Code Veronica.
Yeah, had I
So this is a big win for Team Brandon. There you go.
Code Veronica is just so 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 dark. And like it's creepy dark where there's like incest shit going on and stuff. And like which is terrifying. And I understand why that's in a horror game. I just kind of thought Capcom wanted to ever avoid really going back to that. Um but yeah, so Dusk Golem, obviously he got some information wrong about RE9 and yeah, but this information that he just talked about here with Zero and Code Veronica, IGN also corroborated that, saying that they have reason to believe that Zero and Code Veronica are actively in development. And it's interesting to me because these are two games where a lot is going to be changed, which hasn't really been the case so much with the recent remakes. Well, I guess in three, a lot was removed. I think it's a weird thing where in Zero and Code Veronica, a lot is going to be added and removed. They're going to do some like massive rewriting of Zero's story for sure, and probably Code Veronica's as well. I don't, with that whole incest angle, I don't really know how much they're going to lean into that creepy shit.
The
Uh,
Game of Thrones was a massive success.
right, right.
So, I don't think people are as turned off and switched off by it when it's them themes.
Yeah. Well, hopefully they're
I
turned
think I
off by
think
incest.
of but yeah, I mean yeah. Um More so like RE5 got so much flack for the racism angle back in the day. I think that's probably why they're so hesitant on touching that, because that's still such a touchy subject.
That's so crazy to
More
me.
so that no, that's what I mean. And like that's them themes that you're saying in Code Veronica seem a lot more dangerous. What should be a lot more dangerous to do, because you would
Yeah.
hope that we would have progressed enough as a species, as it were, to look at RE5 and be like, it really wasn't. Well, you know,
I mean, it's set in Africa. It's
yeah.
like,
Could it have been a tiny bit more tasteful? Sure, but like the thing I've never understood is if it's set in America and you're shooting Americans, why is that okay?
well, when it's set in Spain and you're shooting Spaniards,
Exactly. Yeah.
it only kind of makes sense. I never really understood that.
So yeah,
And it's not like you're shooting humans. Like they're all infected. By the time the RE5 begins and by the time you're shooting these motherfuckers, they're all infected, if I'm not mistaken. I could be
who
wrong on
knows?
that.
I'll never understand it personally. I didn't think that it was that bad of a setting and tone, to be honest.
I
But
think
that may be just be because my tolerance levels are a hell of a lot higher because, I like dark comedy. So maybe I'm just desensitized to it.
yeah, well, like dude, I mean the thing about Resident Evil 5 to me just isn't good because of a bunch of other things. Like it's an action game that like it controls way it was antiquated. I mean, it was archaic when it released because you had the Gears games and shit, which were, you're fully moved. Resident Evil 5, if I'm not mistaken, came out after Dead Space. And when in comparison, Resident Evil 5 feels just like garbage compared to the first Dead Space game. But regardless, um, the Code Veronica, the story is really, really good. And like I said, I think it's an essential Wesker story. You have to, if you're going to end up building the Resident Evil 5 remake at some point, which obviously they are, I think you have to get that Wesker story in there. And I think it kind of makes me speculate if we go back to like Chris and Claire and Leon and Jill and the essential characters from the franchise, if we go back to them for Resident Evil 9, you also kind of have to tell Code Veronica's story for that. Because, like I said, Chris and Claire, a big story revolving around those characters. And so it it makes sense to me to get all the key characters, their entire story arcs remade and playable for modern audiences. Um and like they're both Zero and Code Veronica are so challenging. They're both really, really difficult games. So I imagine they're going to fine tune that quite a bit. I imagine
I don't know.
RE0.
They heavily leaned on challenge in RE2's like update. I don't know if you tried it out. They added the challenge mode kind of things, segments.
Oh, well, they'll definitely
You
have all
had
that stuff.
no, but they added an extra one where it's set in like the gas station, and that was the hardest thing in any like modern Resident Evil game. It was so brutal with like how precise you had to be and how tight the resources were. Because you played as the cop that you find in the beginning of RE2, and it shows his story behind it all.
Nice.
Hard as hell. Hard as hell. Hardest thing I've done in a quite a long time. I was like, Jesus Christ. This was like a fairly breezy game.
Well, and it's the thing where with Code Veronica and RE0, it's kind of weird because neither game is necessarily difficult. They're both kind of tedious in the way that they're difficult. Like if you don't pick up the what is it, the fire extinguisher in Code Veronica, I think you can't get the Magnum pistol. And you'll like go into your final boss fight without that. It is brutal without that pistol. And in Zero, the tedium comes a lot from like the item swapping. So with what is it, Billy and uh Rebecca. With Billy and Rebecca, you control both characters, but you have to swap items back and forth to manage your inventory. Like there's no drop box where you can just store your inventory and it piles up like, in RE2, like you have the big ass crate that you store all your items and you come back to pull them out, go as you please. You can't really do that in RE0. You have to swap the items manually between the two characters. And people hated that shit. So I imagine that'll get cut for sure.
Yeah, they'll heavily streamline it to cut back on like menu tabbing and stuff. Maybe it's just a button prompt. If it's in your inventory, you just click triangle or Y and it just hands that one and stuff like that.
Yeah, I just imagine they'll have separate inventories and they'll have an item box. Like I think they're going to totally do away with the swapping the inventory between the two characters because people hate that. I didn't mind it at all. I actually thought it was really interesting. It made for like more strategic planning where it's like, okay, I'm going to send Billy out because Rebecca's low on health. I'm going to have him bring her back some first aid, and it just, I don't know, it added something to me. But I also wonder, Loon, that game felt tailor-made for a co-op experience. Do you think that RE0 could be like the test bed where they lay out the foundation for co-op in Resident Evil for like a story-based co-op game? Because when I think of Outbreak, that's obviously the one that people want them to return to and remake, but I don't know name-wise. Will Outbreak sell in the same way that Resident Evil 0? Like something that with it's just simple kind of origin story, like with Yakuza 0, that got a lot of people in. would it be more of a mainstream success
To
to,
be to be fair with the Yakuza Zero thing, that was what the RE2 remake was. Like it was its first step into kind of gaining that traction, as well as even more importance, it was the first step at seriously exposing the West, the Yakuza.
sure,
Um, so I don't. I think they've hit their ceiling. If I'm being honest, I don't think you're gonna get all that many more converts. Like if somebody's not played any of the remakes, then it's very unlikely that they're going to be coming into Zero and stuff, unless they're obviously brand new to gaming. I don't think it's going to turn heads. I think this may be like also an unpopular thing. Just they don't need co-op. Just ignore that completely as a feature. Like you've clearly shown that your strongest entries have just been solo single player stuff.
totally.
You've had a crack at your multiplayer competitive shooters and stuff with uh Reverse, which bombed pretty bad. What was it? The Resistance one, where it was kind of more in the style like a Dead by Daylight kind of thing, just a little bit different, and that didn't do very well. I don't think people, maybe some people do, but I think the majority of people don't want a co-op game either. We'd rather just play Resident Evil single player. It's where it's strongest.
I definitely
Because
agree.
look at Resident Evil 5, like that was one of the big reasons as well as to why people just didn't enjoy it. Because it was so tailored towards being co-op. But if you played it in solo, you were given an AI companion which was really, really stupid and brain dead. And
Yeah,
it hindered the experience. And so yeah, just keep it solo, man.
I agree 100%. I mean, because like I hated Resident Evil 5 because I played it solo and then I played Resident Evil 6 with a buddy and loved Resident Evil 6. So it's like to be that dependent upon multiplayer, I do think is a massive risk. Um, which I just didn't really like Resident Evil 5 for a lot of reasons. And I guess I don't know why I liked Resident Evil 6 more. It felt like, well, obviously the moving and shooting helped a fucking ton. I could not believe that you couldn't move and shoot in Resident Evil 5. But anyways,
If it's a bad game as well and you play something co-op, it does enhance it. Just
yes.
like me and a friend played through Kane and Lynch 2. It's a
Oh yeah.
fucking dreadful game, but you can just get a laugh out of it and just enjoy it because it's you're both laughing at it together, and that enhances it. And you're just like, man, this is goofy as fuck. So
Totally.
yeah,
I think this is actually a pretty cool position for Capcom to be in, though. They're going to two games that do need work. They're going to two games that are these games are going to be changed quite a bit. And I know three was changed quite a bit, uh, probably for the worse. I think a lot of people would suggest, but Zero and Code Veronica, it feels like you can actually do some pretty cool shit here. I do love the idea of rewriting certain things. I love the idea of smoothing some of those rough edges out to get more, to make it because nobody fucking finished Code Veronica or Zero. Like those games are really brutal. So just modernizing that a little bit, allowing new audiences to check those games out, and just I those are two really solid games. I think they both deserve remakes. I know people don't love Zero as much as I do, but I really really enjoy Zero. From a story perspective, sure, they can flesh out the ending a little bit more. Sure, they can because they're gonna have to add some shit to Zero. I think they're gonna have to expand that train section quite a bit from the beginning because that's really the spot where everybody loves Zero, and then everything after that people start to fall off. Um, yeah, just I'm all for Capcom remaking the essential Resident Evil games.
they're yet to drop the ball. Other than the multiplayer titles,
Yep.
they've yet to step a foot wrong in how many years now? Like
Oh
they're on a
man.
hot streak. Like
2017.
Yeah, 2017 was Resident Evil 7, right?
Yep.
They've they've just had W after W. Like they're really, really on a hot streak. So just, whatever they do, just let them do it. They've not given us any reason to doubt their direction and their leadership, unlike most other companies right now.
Could not agree with you more. I do wish that Code Veronica would have came out before Resident Evil 4, right after RE3, or even uh yeah, I guess you could do it after RE2 as well, but it just would have made more sense in the canon. It is what it is. It doesn't necessarily tie to Resident Evil 4 directly, but it transitions and flows right out of Resident Evil 2 and 3 so well. So you can have critiques here and there. Zero, I think you can kind of release whenever, and you can release Code Veronica whenever. I'm just happy that those two games are in development. So, next up on the docket, we have, I guess I should attach this to the PlayStation news. We have some PS2 classics coming to PlayStation Plus Premium on June 11th. We have Tomb Raider Legend, Star Wars The Clone Wars, and Sly Cooper and the Thievius Raccoonus. So, dude, this is really fucking awesome to me. Um, None of these were PS4 ports that they're just making available on the PS5. So this does show to me we're likely going to get a lot more PS2 games coming to PlayStation 5 very soon. And in my opinion, PlayStation 2 has maybe the best library of games ever. So I'm hoping this expands well beyond what we got with the PS1 classics. I know that's a difficult ask because you have to it's a two-way street. You got to get publishers to agree to, port those games over to your little classic
Yeah.
collection.
Well, the thing is if it ever loads, please give me the information. It was Tomb Raider Legend, a Star Wars game, right?
Star Wars Clone Wars and Sly Cooper and the Thievius Raccoonus. So Sly 1.
So Tomb Raider Legend was a backwards compat title for
Yep.
360, and Clone Wars was also an original Xbox backwards compat title.
Yep.
So it makes sense that they're making their way over to PlayStation. That probably didn't, it didn't require all that much pulling strings, and Sly is their own IP, right?
Yep.
Sony own it, so it's not too difficult. That's the thing I'm most interested in, is it's either going to go down one of two streets. It's going to go down, they're just going to get whatever Xbox, they'll just look at whatever they were able to license to get back compat and hit them up to drag them in bit by bit. Or they go even harder and try and drag even more third party titles that maybe Xbox didn't grab to try and give them an edge in the, quote unquote backwards compatible and, preservation lineup. But
Yeah.
it's a good win either way. It goes into their subscription model service, right?
Yeah, it goes into PlayStation Plus Premium, and you can also buy them
But
as
you can
well.
also buy them. That's what I was going to say. You can also buy them individually, I believe, for about $20 a piece, usually.
I think they're all 10.
Oh, even cheaper. So
Absolutely.
that's yeah, it's good. Do they have trophy support as well? Do
Yep,
we know?
I think so. I think so. They all the
Win,
PlayStation
win, win.
I shouldn't say all the PlayStation 1. The majority of those classic games do have trophy support. They also have like rewind features and shit,
Yeah,
save states. Like, yeah, there's some real enhancements that were done to the majority of those games. Unfortunately, with these games, I've already played all of them. But I played Tomb Raider Legend last year, so I'm definitely not going to pick that up. I probably will pick up Star Wars: The Clone Wars and Sly Cooper. I'm definitely down to replay Sly Cooper. It's been years. And I'm always down to just have a Star Wars game. Kind of just dabble like I dabble with Jedi Academy every now and then. I dabble with Racer's Revenge every now and then. I just kind of hop into Star Wars games like once again as sort of a wind down title. Something I don't really have any intention on playing through because obviously I've played through those games in the past, but just to kind of get that Star Wars atmosphere. It's always nice to have those on the go at any time. I know that Capcom allowed for RE1, the OG, to be on PS Plus Premium. And I'd really be interested, as we talked about Outbreak earlier, I'd really be interested to see Outbreak get added with online support. I know that's a fucking ton of work, but if they do want a sort of test run to see if fans are interested in Outbreak at all, I think, yeah, I'm not sure if the juice is worth the squeeze, but I think that could be compelling.
I think that's what has baffled me is that you have so many modding scenes out there, right? And they've already that there's groups of people that are keeping these games alive. Why not hit them up and contract them for their services so it's even if they're already done the work mostly, and then they could just say, can you hand it to us and have our team just fine tooth comb it over like that would take them hardly any time at all. You would think.
I guess it would be through I would guess the other publishers would be the ones
Hmm.
who like Capcom. I don't know if Capcom would be thrilled with working in collaboration with a modding community to get their game available. Which I don't know why they wouldn't be, but yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it's always just kind of baffled me that there's so much work has already been done. Why are you going to go back to square one?
Yeah.
Because it made me laugh that, an example of this was Dark Souls 1's PC port was woeful, but the modding community fixed it in like under a day. And then we had to wait how many years for Dark Souls Remastered to get them fixes? Like, it's crazy. Crazy.
Yeah. I would love to see because I know Disney, obviously, as you see with Star Wars, fucking KOTOR, man. Get KOTOR on PlayStation. That is crazy to me that they have the Switch game, but it's not available on PlayStation. You can play it through backwards compatibility on Xbox, but
Do you think
it's
Xbox still has something? Like in penned writing saying that this can't be on a PlayStation in its like
maybe
current state. That's why they tried to go down that remake route. You'd have to like it. You can't have this in its original state on a PlayStation console, and they have that
honest.
framed in Phil's office.
Dude, I know it sounds funny, but like I really would not doubt it because those motherfuckers, people talk about, all console warriors online, they're delusional, which they are delusional, bunch of fucking weirdos. But at the same time, those console wars are taking place in the boardrooms as well. Like they add tons of fuel to that fire, man. The console wars have been going on for fucking ever, and they will do some petty ass shit like that, lifetime contracts and shit. Absolutely, I could see it. Um, One that I think could maybe though make some sense. I guess that's what do they call that? Fucking what? Oh my God, my brain doesn't work. Anyways, Simpsons, Simpsons Hit and Run. That would be
Oh
a
yeah,
sick ass addition to the service. Freudian slip. Jesus Christ, that's where my brain was going.
I can't remember what it was because they had approached the whoever owns the Simpsons and stuff. Who owns it? Is it Disney? Disney
Yeah,
owner them?
Disney.
I think the original, like the people who made the Simpsons Hit and Run, like approached them was like, would you be interested in like getting this back out there? And they were like, no.
Ooh,
They have like no interest in it whatsoever. And I remember that they heavily hunted down and shut down the guy that was doing the fan remake. They were like, yeah, you can't do that. And it's just like, ugh.
I
Why?
I feel like if the Simpsons Hit and Run went live on the PlayStation Store, call me crazy. I think it would sell 1 million copies. At $10, I think
It,
it would sell 1 million copies.
I think it would probably sell more than that, especially at $10.
Yeah.
That's such a low barrier of entry. Like you're talking about every single person who gamed in the early 2000s played that game because
Yeah.
that was when Simpsons was at its peak. So every single person that played that in their childhood, there is no way that they wouldn't scoop that up. And then you'd have the people that are like, oh, I heard this was good. Never
Yeah.
played it because I was too young and stuff like that. Like, that would fly off the shelves.
Dude, I'd fucking kill for Ultimate Spider-Man or Spider-Man 2 as well. I know that might be kind of weird with Well, I don't know. What the fuck am I saying? Activision has nothing to do with that at this point. I mean, obviously they were the creators of it, but I don't think they could like restrict Disney from putting that on PlayStation because Disney, yeah, no, Disney owns all of that at this point. I guess they own all the legacy content. I really don't know. I wonder how that does work. But I'd love to see Ultimate Spider-Man or Spider-Man 2 or any of those classic Marvel PS2, PS3 era games.
Yeah, if anything would move the needle for new subscribers for that stuff, it would be them kind of titles hitting on like a regular basis.
Totally. Well, dude, uh there's some other like Splinter Cell. There's some other ones that are on Xbox that I'm not thinking of off the top of my head, like original Xbox games that I think could make some sense on that service. But speaking of Xbox, Call of Duty is confirmed day one going to Game Pass via the Xbox Wire article. And you were 100% correct. I got to give you your flowers. I got to give you your victory lap here. You called this shit. I was doubting it. And man, this is probably going to be my first time ever playing a Call of Duty game this year.
Ooh. It doesn't look all that appealing to me. I've never been like a fan of like Treyarch Call of Duties, to be
Uh,
honest. Their their style isn't my thing. I've always been more of a Infinity Ward fan. But no, it will get people like yourself who, you were never gonna buy a Call of Duty game in the door. So it's you're not going to be probably who they want to target because you're not going to then finish the campaign and be like, oh, I wonder what multiplayer's like. And then you open up that store and you're like, ooh, how tempting. Yes, I'll fork over $80 in microtransactions for some King Kong gloves.
nope. I will be dabbling straight into the single player story. And then as soon as those 2, 3 hours are up, I will be bouncing out of it. How long are they? I'm assuming like a couple hours, right?
I mean, they used to be fairly respectable. They used to get like 5 to 7 hours out of a Call of Duty campaign. And then what was it? Christopher Judge did a
Yeah.
massive swing at the Game Awards where he's like, my last year's speech was longer than this year's Call of Duty campaign. He's like, well, there goes another bridge I've burned. Oh well.
That's so funny, man. Yeah. And then I remember seeing like Activision employees on Twitter saying like, well, our monthly active users, our
Yeah,
playtime.
right. You don't need to get into a dick measuring contest with Christopher Judge at an award show that made a joke, guys. Jesus Christ.
That's so funny. Um,
Uh,
so yeah, day one on Game Pass, it will be available. The thing that really blew me away is it's going to be available PC Game Pass day one as well. That is like I know that they kind of have to do it. It would be such a weird move to not put it on PC Game Pass if it's going to be on Xbox Game Pass, but that is a wild, wild move in my opinion. But hey,
it's
man,
gonna
you got to do
show
it.
it's gonna show the make or break event. It's gonna
Yes, it will.
show it's gonna show whether or not if you're given one of these games, even if you already pumped money into the microtransactions, are you gonna pump even more in because you have the mindset of I didn't dump the 70? Because I remember playing they had a free play weekend of Modern Warfare 3, so I still haven't bought it. I got playing it with some friends, and they had friends. It was like 8 of us in a Discord. Cool. And like 6 of them all had the same thing of they felt because 6 of them had bought it, and there was 2 of us that were trying it out, and all 6 of them were like, "Why the fuck did I spend $70 on this game? This is a waste of money." They felt like immediate regret. Whereas if you give that to somebody for free, they'll be like, "Oh, it's pretty good for free." And then they look in the store and they're like, "Oh, I can get like a little bit of an edge against people that are kicking my ass in multiplayer. Sure, why not?"
Totally. It's the thing that I find really interesting is okay, do you think they could possibly have their cake and eat it too, where Steam players just refuse to be anywhere but Steam? And do you think it's possible that Steam players are just like, fuck it, we'll just buy it? And that they don't subscribe to Game Pass, even though it's available on Game Pass on PC, could they potentially get,
Yeah, yeah. No, I like tried to think about that for a second. Absolutely, because if like Epic was offering like a subscription model service, or just buy it off of Steam, that doesn't matter what the fuck Epic is doing.
yeah,
Steam is their ecosystem; they will just buy it. So yeah, I don't think that's gonna convert people to. Yeah, I think they'll just keep scraping them sales. People also a big thing as well. People like to own their games,
yes.
knowing that that niggle in the back of their mind of like, oh well, it might get pulled from Game Pass, so I may as well just buy it. Like, I've bought every single one before that. I may as well just buy it anyway.
It's it's weird to me because like it, I don't really know the goal, the end goal here. It because we know that they want to get up to like 50 million Game Pass subscribers, and that's not going to happen with this with this year Call of Duty. I don't think it's ever going to happen, but it's definitely not going to happen in the near term. And then if PC players say, okay, we'd rather just buy it, Hi-Fi Rush did great numbers in Game Pass. The studio got killed. So is it more beneficial just for the PC players to buy it anyway? Like, I don't really know what they want. And that's the thing that's kind of baffling to me, where if they do end up getting, I just wonder what the best outcome is for Xbox here. Like,
That people ignore Game Pass and just buy it full price
then why the hell is it on Game Pass?
because it's
Everything
just a
has to
good.
be.
Everything has to be, but you got to think as well. It's a good PR move because they can be like, well, you can just subscribe to Game Pass and get it.
Uh,
Maybe they're it's like playing chicken. Maybe they're like, we can say this and we'll do it, but you know in the back of your mind the statistics are telling you that maybe 80% of people aren't going to go to Game Pass and you're just going to get that flat money anyway. And
yeah,
it
there you
because
go.
it's a win-win. It makes you look good saying that you're putting it all in, but you know people are so tightly engrossed into their system that they haven't interacted with PC Game Pass and had like a monthly subscription. So they're probably not going to do that anyway. They'd rather just buy it, not be inconvenienced.
But at the same time, I'm still so curious what the end game is for Game Pass. Like, what's going to push that service? You know what I mean? Like, if
I have
this
no
isn't,
idea.
yeah, yeah. Because if it's not this, is it anything? You know, is it just impossible? Are gamers just resistant to the subscription? So, like, I really, I have no
The thing
fucking
is
idea.
this replaced Xbox Live Gold, which
Yep.
ran for however many, like 13 or whatever years, maybe longer. Um, so this is the new like baseline. They never really complained about the numbers in gold ever. So I don't, maybe they just don't care about the numbers really either with Game Pass. Maybe it's
Yep.
just a bonus.
But then you also have to factor in that in gold, your first party games weren't dropping day and date there. So it's like,
No, but there were some fairly like big hitters to land fairly quickly as well back in the day. Like to get Dark Souls as quick as they did, that's pretty insane.
yeah, it's there. It's a fascinating business that I really, um, so I'm going to read you this. This is from Matt Piscatella, uh, the executive director of, Circana
Mhm.
NPD, formerly NPD. He tweeted in response to Call of Duty launching day one on Game Pass. He said, well, here it is, the biggest card that can be played. Whatever the consumer response is, this release will have massive implications for the world of video games. My best guess, it does give us a moderate subs bump in Q4, but doesn't significantly change purchase patterns on other platforms and sells a few incremental Xbox Series consoles, but not enough to significantly change trends. Could be quite likely to be, in fact, wrong. Uh, could be quite likely to be in fact wrong. The subs bump could also be at least partially offset if the release of this game comes with a price hike to Game Pass. We'll see how aggressive they want to go on that bit, which I'm guessing end up being on the could end up being quite aggressive indeed. So who knows? Going to be wild. I mean, if this announcement was made today to try to get folks to subscribe right away in order to then drop a price increase announcement during the upcoming show, not saying that would happen or that I want it to happen, but just imagine if it did. What do you take away from all of that? I guess it's kind of in alignment with what we were already talking about there, but the price hike thing I find interesting. Do you think they risk that in the first year?
If there's ever going to be a reason to justify another price hike, it would be this.
That is true.
Especially if they can kind of carrot on the stick, say that, COD's coming this year and we will be bringing other high class Activision Blizzard games. Maybe not name dropping them, but alluding to potentially like a World of Warcraft port to consoles and stuff like that, and Hearthstone and all this. Then,
Yeah.
that could justify it. There's a huge amount of games catalogs that they could angle in front of people.
Did you hear the I know we're going long as shit, but did you hear that it's supposed to have like some 9/11 shit in it?
Oh, what, the new card?
Yeah.
I didn't, but that doesn't surprise me. They've been like really going hard on like putting like a bunch of US presidents in and then being like, yeah, it's all lies, conspiracies, and
Yeah.
everything. And obviously, like, there was the massive thing of people saying that 9/11 was an inside job, conspiracy crap
Yeah.
things. So
Which
maybe that's drawing inspiration from that.
listen, I'm not the most I for one, you could convince me that anything is a fucking conspiracy. I'm as
Jet fuel
gullible.
does not melt steel beams.
I'm as gullible as it gets. But I think that that angle, just as a see, like I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but it's not because I don't believe in them. It's because I actively have to avoid that shit because I'm so gullible. So it's just like I kind of don't really I don't really have an opinion one way or the other on if 9/11 was an inside job or not. Like I naturally lean towards cynicism and pessimism where I think that the American government is always up to some horribly, horribly fucked up shit.
Yeah, like
And
any other government, to be fair.
right, right. And I mean, we obviously not to go into everything, but we obviously know about Operation Mockingbird and we know about we know that we have done some horrific shit, that the American government has done some horrific shit. And even 9/11 post retaliation, just the lingering presence and anyways, we don't need to get into all that shit. But the American government has done some horrific shit, and I think leaning into that is the type of thing that would get me into the door to play a Call of Duty game for sure.
Well,
If
look what propelled MW2 so hard. It
was
was
that the no
the
Russian?
no Russian going through that airport terminal. And obviously they had to, when they got hit by the backlash, they patched in a thing that pops up saying that you can skip this mission. There's no like repercussions, as it won't affect anything. We understand that it's distressing for some people, but like it made for one of the most impactful moments in gaming, where it was like, holy shit, you had the balls to do this.
Yeah.
And with you mentioning it, like, are they gonna have the balls to like have it a perspective of somebody on that flight and do that? Like, do they have the balls to do that? Or someone in the building? Like,
I don't mean to sound insensitive, but it is history. And like
yeah,
I don't know I know people say too soon or whatever, but it's been over 20 years. So it's like we can't talk about history that happened 20 years ago. And like, I don't know.
well,
You look at
look how quickly they made films on like Vietnam and stuff.
right,
The turnover for that was quick.
And that's
As
a
long as they're respectful, as long as that's what I'll say. As long as it's not trying to be comedic, then
for
I'd be
sure.
like,
Yeah.
guys, come on. But if it's trying to base itself in like the realms of reality and just show how grueling and gritty and horrible that thing was that happened and be respectful of it, I think you can make a very impactful story moment out of it.
Well, and to me, it's like, of course, show sympathy and empathy to the lives that were lost, but like, if you're taking a shot at the American government, like, I don't really know how that's necessarily disrespectful to you know what I'm saying? Like, even if they did take an angle where they tried to paint it as an inside job, like, regardless, those people were were
It's also
murdered. That
it's also fiction. That's the thing as well. Like,
But it's pulling from real world events, so I guess that's kind of the
yeah,
conundrum.
yeah. I've always been like, as long as it's fiction. Yeah, it didn't. There's always a grain of truth in a lot of stories that are being done. So as long as you can just separate reality from fiction,
Yeah.
because
Yeah,
there was the game this what was it called? 6 Days of Fallujah or whatever it was that had to be completely shut down, which was like a really gritty, realistic portrayal and trying to capture like I think it was the Iraq War and stuff. And people were like, no, you can't show that. And it's just like, okay, then you realize this stuff happens and stuff. So if you're like shying away from it, then it's a little bit hypocritical. It's a bit
yeah,
weird.
yeah, and just I don't know. I could go on and on about this. I find it really interesting. To me, I'll just be totally honest. The wilder they get with that shit, the more likely I am to check it out. Like, I hate to sound insensitive. I don't want them to make a mockery of what happened that day. It was fucking horrible. But if they have the balls to have a take on this, like some Oliver Stone-esque shit, hey, I'm all ears to hear what you have to say about it. I'm just saying that I find all of that shit to be compelling from just a purely like letting your mind kind of wonder about different possibilities. I'm open ears.
Yeah, that's the whole point of history and stuff, learning about stuff and learning
Absolutely.
about different angles as well and different perspectives.
Totally, man. Um, Staying in Xbox land, we have a rumor here from Noble, and it is stating that Xbox has reportedly signed a deal for 100 Stars' first AAA single-player action-adventure game. 100 Stars was founded by the former Rocksteady Batman Arkham trilogy heads Sefton Hill and Jamie Walker. So, former Rocksteady heads founded a new studio, 100 Star, and they have signed a deal with Xbox for their first AAA action adventure game. Loon, what you thinking?
I don't know if you saw the extra bit of it as well, which kind of broke alongside it, I believe. I think Luke Stevens touched on it.
I
So he
didn't
said it's
see it.
incredibly interesting. He had talked to somebody who had really close ties to like modern day Rocksteady. All of that team is gone.
Oh, I bet.
All that team is gone, and it broke that it wasn't Warner Brothers that forced them to make Suicide. They themselves, that team wanted to make Suicide Squad a live service game. They were the
Hmm.
ones that brought it forward. So I think this further nails on the head how important this new studio is. If it's the old guard of Rocksteady, you know that this is going to be top tier, whatever they're going to go and make, because that's the talent. Whoever's at that Rocksteady now is not the people that made Arkham Asylum, Arkham City, and stuff.
Yeah.
So that's a really good get for Microsoft. I'm not sure what they'll end up giving them. It was very vague. It just said an action adventure game, right?
Yeah. I
So that that could be literally anything.
What do you want? Would you rather it be like something of their own creation or back to the superhero space, like a Superman game or something? I personally, you obviously know my opinion. I'm new IP all the way. I think that that's super valuable to have a new IP in your portfolio, especially if you are Xbox, something that you can actually market and franchise for years and years to come. But what would you rather have?
I mean, either way, like it would be interesting to see what they could creatively spark up. But then I think it would also be interesting. I don't know if like other people would feel this way. You know, with Sony being so deeply connected and tied to Marvel, with like Spider-Man and stuff, why not just make Xbox the DC platform?
Totally.
Have them do DC stuff, like heavily DC stuff related. That'd be an interesting spin on it.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Um, The Executor article goes on to say this. Unfortunately, not much else is known about this game, but the partnership has already been signed and Xbox Game Studios is financing the studio's first project. The title is likely a platform exclusive, releasing in the future for both Xbox consoles and PC. But considering Xbox's current approach towards exclusivity, it's hard to say what'll happen in the future. So, this better be fucking exclusive. I don't want to hear none of this damn got to get some damn exclusives on the board here.
I mean, Avowed has had like no people who are like in the know say that there's no PlayStation port in sight at the moment. Like,
Good.
there's not even like talks of that behind closed doors at all at the moment. So maybe they're looking to keep certain titles completely locked down, which you really do. You need something that's
Yes.
only available on your system. Like seriously, like people are obviously hinting that maybe Starfield gets PlayStation ports and stuff like that. You just, I know it was like received fairly negatively, but it's a Bethesda RPG. If you can keep that on your console and keep adding content to it and then give them the modding tools and everything, so it's a big incentive to pull people over.
I the inconsistencies kind of annoy me with Xbox. Like Hellblade 2, if you want to do the whole thing that they're saying where it's like if it's a known quantity, if it's a franchise that has legacy on other platforms, we'll continue to support it and release it on other platforms. Hellblade 2 should be on PlayStation. Doom, cool. Because like that's the thing. If Doom's gonna go to PlayStation, I get it. If Wolfenstein's gonna go to PlayStation, I get it. But like for fuck's sake, keep Indiana Jones on Xbox, keep Starfield on Xbox, keep Avowed on Xbox. But it's the inconsistency because if Hellblade 2 was available on PlayStation and Hi-Fi Rush wasn't available on PlayStation, then the messaging would make sense. New things that were created under our leadership that we financed, that stays here on our platform. Legacy content franchises, those exist on other platforms. Like the messaging is so inconsistent. That's always the thing. And like when you saw Herman Holst doing that presentation for the PlayStation business meeting, he's like clear, concise. This is what we do. This is how we're going to keep doing it. And then it's like, man, what the fuck are y'all doing? And I know it's not all on them because Microsoft is definitely pulling strings left and right, changing plans. But it's like, it's just I just wish we had some clear messaging for what the fuck is going to be exclusive or not. Make this 100-star studios make their title exclusive. You're funding it. PC, Xbox, nowhere else. I don't give a fuck if you don't make a profit. Add value to your damn platform. Then you'll profit later in the future. Like, have some damn foresight. The 360 was chock full of exclusives.
Yeah, it was a pride thing when you'd pick up a 360 case and see that stamp of only on Xbox 360. Like
Why does it doesn't say it on Crackdown 2? That's weird. Why does it not say
I
that?
think it's in the top right where that sticker is where they planted it,
Oh, is
I
it?
believe, is where they would stick it. But it could be different for American cases, but I'm fairly certain it was in the top right.
Here we go. Boom. The fucking right there, sitting
There you go.
pretty on the top of the box, man. That's good shit. That is good shit. I don't know why I value that so much, but I value the shit out of seeing only on Xbox on a damn case. I missed that, man. Have a little pride. Stick your chest out. Punch
Hmm,
somebody.
exactly. Have pride in your product. Say it's only available here.
Yeah,
But they just, yeah, that's just not their way anymore.
I
They,
swear, man. But yeah, dude, I think that is everything for the news this week. Long ass news episode. We're sitting. Okay, we can yeah, we'll go through what we're playing and then we'll cut the topic and we'll return back to the topic for next week. But before that, Loon, I'm gonna hit the bathroom. I'll be right back in 2 seconds. All right. So Loon, I'll kick it over to you first. What have you been playing, my friend?
um, I'm not gonna lie. I've had an extremely hard time like focusing on anything after Hellblade 2. Like, I'm gonna be 100% honest. It was such a crap experience for me. I lost a lot of motivation. Like, I was jumping between things, and in like 15 minutes, and I was just like, ugh. Then I jumped something else, and I was like, ugh. But usually when I get into that kind of slump, I try and like lean into like the 100% a little bit more. Then try and if I'm not gonna get like invested in the story of something because I can't focus and I'm not enjoying and can't connect, I may as well just turn that time into doing some of the 100% grinds. And I think I mentioned Xdefiant last week had released, and I've been working through that. I think I'm 11 out of 12 on the achievements. I'm just
Oh,
one
nice.
achievement away from doing that, which is just getting to level 50, which is just play matches and it'll naturally accumulate. But yeah, I didn't story beat any games this week. So there was that. I did started Elden Ring up again. So I'm only missing two endings from that. Kind of getting prepped for the DLC. So working through that, and then the final thing I did was somebody put in the comments that it was impossible to obtain the Metal Gear Solid 5 100%.
Oh, really?
I was fairly. I was like, I don't think that's the case. Maybe they meant on like the PS3 360 is the only
Hmm.
thing I can think of. I think they said something to do with like servers and stuff. And I was like, I don't think that's the case. And I was like, I'm gonna kick myself if I do like the Mad Max with this, where like if it's server based and I didn't do something that's so damn simple and it locks me out the 100%, I'm gonna be pretty pissed off. So I went through and was like looking through as to what could potentially be server related, and then there was something to do with like uh, arming and disarming nukes. I think is the closest thing to that, and I knocked that out. And I'm just working on like the 100% of that. But my God, like it, I think you weren't too hot on the Phantom Pain. I absolutely love it. Like it's the best open world stealth game, second to none. It may even be the best stealth game overall for me, second to none. I'd be a little bit more hesitant and fully locking down that as like an answer. But the 100% is so long. Like the amount of stuff you need to do for it, like the side ops, and then having to do, you have like all the missions that you got to do, and then they add tasks that you got to do for it. You need to S rank all of them, which is, that's fine. But then it also adds missions that you've already done, but does like specific challenge things for it and stuff like that. So like you can't use buddies, you can't do this, you can't do that, and stuff like that. And it does kind of artificially lengthen the game a little bit. But I think it
Yeah.
said the overall completions at the moment for me is in about 65%. When I'd started last week, I think it was about 51.
Hmm.
So I'm making decent progress.
Progress. Yeah. Nice, dude. Is
But
that
yeah, that
everything
was
you've been
it for
playing?
me. Yeah, just been on like 100% try and get stuff scratched off kick.
So I talked last week about how I was in the same boat as you, really couldn't click with anything at all. And I still this week was trying to dabble here, trying to dabble there, and I just could not find anything. And I was like, you know what? Let me play Red Dead 1. Let me go ahead and finish up Red Dead Redemption 1. I never beat it. And Yeah, I think my gaming slump is over for sure. I booted that up. I was already about 25 hours into it, put about another 15, 20 into it this week, and I could not put that thing down. Could not
Yeah.
put that thing down. It is like genuinely, in my opinion, it, it doesn't even make sense. Like it really doesn't even make sense. They're so much better than almost any other developer ever. It's ridiculous, man. Those games are so damn addictive. Like in my opinion, after finishing Red Dead 1, I was sitting there thinking, I was like, are these just like the two greatest games I've ever played in my life? Two Red Dead 2 being number one and Red Dead 1 being number two. Like I don't know that definitively, but that's the type of feeling that these games leave with you. Rockstar, they're on a different level. And neither are my favorite game ever, but they're just so like objectively good. And those worlds, I mean, I would just go off. I got into a high stakes poker tournament and I played that for like 3 hours. I don't know if it was 3 hours, but like I was there for a long ass time playing poker and trying to be super deliberate and, trying not to overbluff, but trying to trying to calculate all the different odds. Like I was so invested. And it's not like that money really, it's $250 to enter the high stakes poker. You got like 5 grand or whatever on you. It's not like the biggest deal to lose it, but like I just, I'm so invested in everything going on. I'm going off and I'm playing damn, the arm wrestling. I'm playing blackjack. I'm doing the finger fillet,
Five finger fillet, yeah.
dude.
Like horseshoes, did some horseshoes.
Yeah, I did some horseshoes as well. I started beating that dude at horseshoes. I could never get the
The
what are
ringer.
the ringer. I could never quite get that. But I ended up getting to the point where I was beating the dude pretty consistently. That was a pretty tough one to figure out, but just yeah, everything about this game is like of course the biggest critique is going to be the movement, and that would be
Yeah.
my biggest critique as well. Like it still has that PS2 era clunk when you're trying to climb over something and you jump and you just and it's like that's not how you jump over a fence, Mr. Marston. Grab the fucking fence and then
They never
eventually
taught him this, all right? He didn't get an education, the young man.
dude, in that story, just the Marston story, just like Arthur Morgan, like this tragic tale that is uh, I mean, I don't want to spoil anything, even though it's a game from 2010, but the ending, dude, the fucking ending, that you beat the game, right?
Yeah.
The final moment and the symbolism there in that final moment is like chef's kiss, masterful fucking storytelling, dude.
Who do you think had a stronger ending between the two main
Arthur,
characters?
for me, Arthur for sure. I mean, just the
It's why it hurt me to a deep core that you didn't remember the song on its
I
ride because it's so impactful because it does all the cutbacks of every like major decision you made, like side quest and everything that would like alter your honor points to like a big degree. Such a hard hitting song, and then it would like snap to like something, and then it would play like the voice of whatever your choice was, and it's just like I'm tearing up over
in my notes here for Red Dead 1, I wrote down epic soundtrack.
here.
Sitting here today, like 4 days after finishing it, 3 days, whatever, I can't remember a single song that played. I don't know what it is about video game music that just instantly leaves my head. Like I remember moments for sure. I just do not remember the music that accompanies the moments. It's
Man, it's so crazy because you're like fairly like it's not like you're musically like tone deaf. Like you enjoy music
oh yeah, I
as
love
well, like
music.
outside of gaming.
Absolutely.
That's
Yeah,
crazy.
I've I recently been on this has nothing to do with anything. Recently been on a massive Soundgarden kick over the last week. I've been listening to their albums on full. Like I usually when I drive, I just listen to podcasts and I just got tired of hearing motherfuckers talk. So I was like, let me listen to some music. And I bought all the Soundgarden albums and I've just been listening to them bitches from front to back. And dude, I I always knew Soundgarden was incredible. I have a newfound appreciation for them as like maybe Alice in Chains is probably my favorite grunge band, but that Super Unknown record from Soundgarden is maybe my favorite overall grunge record ever. That is crazy. The amount of just like bangers on that. You got Black Hole Sun and you got Fell on Black Days and Spoon Man and uh The Day I Tried to Live, and like it's just chock full of bangers. Anyways, so yeah, I do definitely. My dad's a music he was a made a living as a musician. So like I appreciate the shit out of music. I've listened to his favorite stuff from the 70s. Then my cousin brought me up on all the stuff from the 80s and 90s, and then I found my appreciation for like late 90s, early 2000s hip hop, and then into the right country. I like all genres. It's weird. Like I don't know
Mm.
why soundtracks for video games do not click with me, but I'm like I never really I listen to pretty much all styles of music. Like there's not a style of music that I don't like. And it's not that I don't like video game music. I have no idea what that is
It
at
just
all.
enters one, it goes in, you're like, this is amazing, and then it just leaves.
Yes. And it's like what's his name? Austin Wintory, the dude who did The Pathless and I think Journey, maybe not Journey. He does a lot of those like artsy soundtracks and excellent music. And when I'm playing it, I'm like, oh my God, it almost makes me want to tear up. Sitting here right now, couldn't fucking even hum a millisecond of any of those songs.
God.
I don't
Oh,
know.
speaking of like early 2000s, did you see M
Eminem.
dropped a song at like 4 in the morning?
Did you see
Of
Shane
him.
Gillis was in the video?
Yeah, that was creasing up Shane Gillis. He had God, what's his name? The guy who dated Ariana Grande.
Pete Davidson.
Pete Davidson. Don't worry,
Yeah.
man. I got my license back. Oh, it was so good.
Yeah, I found it
So
so
good.
funny that Shane Gillis Eminem crossover, like as we were talking about them just the other day, and then they end up
Yeah.
meeting in the middle of the video. It's fucking hilarious.
Man, it's such a good song as well. And it's just so easily poking fun at his divided personality and stuff, like
Yeah.
warping his old self and being like, what would my old self have said?
Do you
And then
think
he
this is
still
his
makes,
last album?
I don't know. The guy has so much drive
Yeah.
because he's not like 50 where 50 made his money in like music and that. Because he said that, obviously M did 8 Mile.
Yeah.
50 was like pestering him. He's like, dude, you don't need to make music anymore. Like, do you understand how much
I
easy money is? And M was like,
like
why are you
music.
looking over there, man? Just write the lyrics.
Yeah.
Make the songs. And he just he's just in love with just being a lyricist and nothing else because he didn't particularly enjoy acting and stuff like that. He didn't really enjoy his time on 8 Mile. And 50 was like, so he just has that unbelievable drive. So I
Yeah.
don't know. I don't know. Because I
Because
can't what else would he do?
that's what I was about to say. He would have to like start owning the fucking Detroit Lions, like a percentage of the Detroit Lions or the Pistons or something. Like,
Because he would get so bored.
yeah.
He just some people when they like retire and everything, they like that burn and then they just dip big time. And it's just
Yeah.
I can't see him doing anything else. Because I remember
Dr. Dre.
they did some yeah,
Yeah. When he stopped writing music, his health like took a massive
yeah. He had a
yeah.
tumor, didn't he, in the brain a few years back, I believe.
Okay. I thought it was something with the heart. Never mind. That has nothing to do. Okay. My bad.
I think he had a brain tumor or
Okay.
something. Um, but yeah, I can't see him doing really anything else because, like I said, they did a live stream a few years back with Royce.
Yeah.
He just such a weird guy. Like Royce is sitting there, he's like, dude, we just like act normal. What the fuck is wrong with you? So
Dude,
yeah,
the I mean, the Marshall Mathers LP, and I'll try to put some timestamp in here for people to avoid this, but I'm interested in talking about it now. That Marshall Mathers LP is the first one. That is uh, easily one of my top 10 favorite albums ever. Just from Stan to Marshall Mathers to the way I am to obviously the real Slim Shady, but Kim. Um, Criminal. I mean, it's just bangers on that well, it's not his first album, second album, I guess technically kind of third album, but that first big breakout album. And I mean, even I forget the
There
name
wasn't
of it.
there wasn't any L
No,
on that album at all.
the skits are funny. And even the album before it, like not my favorite, but Rock Bottom is a absolute banger. What's the song? That wild ass song on that first record was just like, I mean, just shock, jock, rock to the core. I forget the name of it, but it's just always some of those lyrics are printed in my head that I can never say on here. But um, but yeah, dude, that record is one of my favorite rap albums of all time. 50 Cent as well. Get Rich or Die Trying. That breakout album is as good of a debut album as almost anything I've ever heard in my life as well.
It was so cold.
Dude, that fucking um Hamo shot me 3 weeks later, he got shot back. Now it's
Yeah,
clear that I'm here for a real reason because he got hit like I
many
got hit,
men.
but he ain't fucking
Oh my
breathing.
God.
And then that pause, like how it says
Yeah.
he got hit like I got hit, but he ain't fucking breathing. And then it pauses for a second. Boom. Many men. It's like, oh, I get chills just thinking about that shit. So once again, makes no sense why I can feel these emotions towards the other, and I feel the emotions while I'm playing a game in the moment, then it just disappears, it evaporates out of the. I do not understand at all. Do not understand at all.
Do you know
That
what I
is
will say actually though? I think I would, because you probably then are you able to envision the moment then rather than the song?
oh yeah, the Arthur Morgan moment, the ashtray maze, all that shit. Like I can see it in my head. The control where the room's flipping upside down and shit.
See, I
The
remember them things, of course, like they were like super impactful. But I think overall, I would probably remember the soundtrack first and then the moment,
okay,
rather than the moment then the soundtrack.
huh?
Because
We
I'm
need.
thinking of you played Wasteland 3, you said, right?
I
The
played
intro
like
bit.
10 hours of it, something like that.
Yeah, so you would have come across where the Jared Dorsey, where it's the cinematic first cutscene and he's like
Yep.
screaming at the camera and then he just gets domed. And then it
Yes,
starts playing Washed in the Blood of the Lamb as
I
the
do not
song.
remember that at all.
And that's what I
That's
mean, that stuck with
crazy,
me. Like it's so powerful because you're like, wow.
dude.
he just got
I
he got
clearly
absolutely domed.
I clearly remember that. Like I can see the entire scene in my head. He's ugly as shit. No offense, but
Yeah.
he's an ugly character. Gets hit in the back. The blood splatters all over. Yeah, dude. I remember that entire cutscene. But I do not. I cannot put the
Holy
song.
shit. And the guy following up, holy shit, they
Yes,
killed Jared.
dude. That is a weird, weird ordeal. We got to have some sort of psychology study to understand why the fuck some people remember moments and why some people remember music more.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, we're fucking 3 hours into a show. Red Dead 1, man. I love the bits of strategy in Red Dead 1 where there's like, you'll have a stagecoach and there's the dude manning. He's got like the Gatling gun, and then there's four dudes on horses behind him. And you're like, how the fuck am I going to? Because the Gatling gun kind of provides some sort of cover for the guy that's manning it. And you're like, how the fuck am I going to take out these four dudes on the horse and the guy on the Gatling gun? Because I got these, uh, what do they call the dead meter? Is it the dead meter? The slowdown meter?
Did I?
Dead eye. Um, I got my dead eye, but I can only do so many shots. And then I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to run up to him on my horse. I'm going to take as much fire as I can possibly take from the four dudes on the back because I need to really focus in every shot on this dude man in the Gatling gun, just hoping that one of these dead eye shots hits him in the head. And then, you finally hit him. You die a couple times. And then as soon as I hit him, I take my horse and I'm essentially doing like a damn U-turn with my horse. I'm drifting with my horse and getting some cover, and then going back as my health kind of regenerates as, I'm getting just gunned down by these dudes on the four horses. And then I trail them back, take them bitches out. And, I love I know a lot of people have criticism of the gunplay and the gameplay in Red Dead 1 specifically. I really enjoy it, man. Certain sections, like towards the end, where you're just in like an open fucking field and you're taking out a full gang of people and you're damn uh I don't want to even say who you're going into the mission with, but the people that are accompanying you on that mission are about as much fucking help as a damn, you know, I am awful at analogies, but they don't fucking help at all. So you're taking out
As good
literally
as Jarrett was.
you're taking out everybody, dude, and you're finding cover in the most inopportune areas. You're like literally ducked down, manually ducked down by a tree, just scoping out people, picking headshots one by one. And I don't know. I really, really enjoy the gunplay in Red Dead 1. And I think that's the thing that separates it so much from the Grand Theft Auto games, because GTA 4's gunplay is awful, man. It's so archaic. And then when you go to Red Dead, it's only 2 years after, but it evolved greatly. And that's the I try to always put myself in the moment, try to like remember this is I can't judge this from a 2024 lens, but in 2010, like when you look at it, Resident Evil 5 released in 2010 or 2009, it came out after Dead Space, which was '08. So Resident
2009, I believe.
but
It was
Resident Evil,
stuffed between them.
yeah. So Resident Evil 9, you couldn't move your character. You couldn't aim and shoot. Red Dead, you're moving, shooting, moving, aiming. Like that was kind of an advanced feature for the time. I'm not saying crazy advanced, but it was kind of advanced for the time. Um, yeah, I don't know. I really, really fucking love that game a lot. I'm really glad I went back to it. Was totally capped. And the thing too, dude, I remembered all the story beats that took place from 20 hours ago and also 2 years ago. I hadn't played the game in 2 years. And I went back to it. I remembered Bonnie McFarlane and her ranch and everything that was going on over there. So then when I go back to meet Bonnie McFarlane later on in the game, I instantly remember the connection and just sort of the weird, will they, won't they? Is John Marston going to kind of fuck off and cheat on his chick? Like all of that kind of, like I remembered all of that. And then she's like kicking the dust after they leave after fuck, no spoiler. It's 2010 game, but regardless. But whenever he leaves and she's kicking the dirt, like she kind of felt like she's like, damn, I thought we could maybe have something here. And I just, man, I love the story. Obviously, the ending with, yeah, the kind of twist, eh, so fucking good, so fucking good.
The question I'll pose, do you think they could get away with it for a third game?
Yes, I know it's
Do
a
you think that
tough.
like because it's like
It's the
not
end.
just the exact same kind of ending both games follow that? You
I'll just
really do you think that it could do like a third game in that exact same mold and get away with
fuck it. We'll just open up the floodgate. I'm just gonna put spoilers, Red Dead 1 spoilers, and then
it?
timestamp. I mean, it's 2010. It is what it is, and just I'd rather people, go into this whole discussion being aware that there's light spoilers. And then for this major spoiler. So John Marston obviously gets killed. Arthur Morgan gets killed. You then boot up as Jack Marston, John's son, and dude, I dig that character as an adult. He just has like this something about him because he's went through fucking real tragedy. As you see, whenever you go to his grave, his mom also died like a couple
Yeah.
years later. So he has gone fucking through it. The tough
Well, he
part,
goes through it even deeper in the second game. Because you're obviously showing him as like a complete child and all the
right.
shit he had to go through, and then furthermore in Red Dead 1.
So
Like the
it
guy's
does,
had a major character.
and it feels like they're kind of building up something with him. And I know people are like, man, why would you go to Red Dead 3? The total, like, you would have to lean more towards mafia stuff because Jack it'd probably be 1920s or even maybe closer to the 1930s potentially, depending on how old they made him. Um, but to me, if you can I think there's that weird wiggle room where you can kind of blend Western and Mafia together, where it is still, backwooded, shady deals, handshake agreements. You can still get away with robbing banks and fucking as the automotive industry became more um, readily available or became more of a common thing in everyday life. That does get weird. Like, are we not using horses?
That's what I was
That
gonna say. Would it? Because in the opening cutscene of the first Red Dead game, as he's getting off that like ferry thing, they're taking like a car off on like a thing.
yeah.
So further going down that timeline even more, you'd think that they would become more readily. And I can't really see. I don't think it'd be extremely thrilling to have like a Ford Model T going at like 6 miles an hour.
But the thing is though, Loon, like they made horses incredibly compelling. So it's like they're obviously
Yeah.
those cars are faster than the horses. So it's like I I I think they could do it. The weird thing is they also have Mafia. 2K or Take Two owns Mafia and Red Dead. So it's like, fuck. Dude, do you put out a 1920s Red Dead game?
How crazy would it be? And I'm not saying that they would do this, but imagine if they kept bringing the Red Dead timeline up, and then it turns out that they're both connected.
Oh, the
They
new
end up
Mafia
crossing
game?
over. They end up crossing over, like have the Mafia games go backwards and have Red Dead go forward, and then they cross over.
Bro, that is epic genius level thought. I never would have considered that. That is fucking brilliant, dude.
Because I can't.
Holy
What
shit.
was Mafia one? That was 40s, right?
That was
Or 30s,
30s.
30s,
Yeah.
40s.
I think 30's into the 40s, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. And then Red Dead 1 was just the turn of the century.
Yeah.
So it's entirely possible for Red Dead to go forward 10 years and Mafia to go back 10 years
Yeah.
and meet.
Mafia 1 is 1930 to 1938. So right near the.
So it'd be 1920s for Mafia to go back 10 years, and then it would be at the end of Jack when he's taking over. Yeah, they would line up perfectly. That
Yeah.
would be so stellar.
That would be so sick, dude. Imagine like rolling in and you see Jack Marston get out of a fucking 1920s just gangster ass car with his cowboy hat. Like, and that pistol at the end when he shoots Edgar.
Mm.
It, I could be way overthinking this, but is that the same pistol that Edgar gave to John earlier in the game? Because he said he needed like a higher powered pistol
I
or
believe
however.
so.
And
Yeah.
then he uses the same pistol that Edgar gave to John to kill Edgar. Like fucking gangster shit, dude.
Symbolism and just
Yes,
attention to detail. Rock stars just perfect at.
man. Um, yeah, the thing to me, and I gotta fucking wrap this shit up, but the thing to me is the Dutch arc. Because like I said, I played Red Dead 2 before Red Dead 1. Well, I played Red Dead 1 first, but I never finished it.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm in the exact same boat as you.
oh
Did the
really?
exact same thing. I did about halfway through Red Dead 1, kind of petered off, started up the Undead Nightmare DLC, thought that was repetitive as shit with what they wanted you to do in that, and dropped it completely. Completely blitzed through Red Dead 2, and then I think it was about a year and a half. I finally went back ago and finished Red Dead 1 for the first time.
What did you think about the Dutch arc? I think I was able to appreciate Dutch as a character way more playing Red Dead 2
Yeah,
first.
yeah, yeah, because he has so much more development. In Red Dead 1,
He's just a
it's
piece of
crazy
shit.
because well, he was a piece of shit in the in the second game as
But
well,
you
but
see that,
he had a veil over him, and he was so convinced in his ideals and his drive and his motivation and his vision that he thought he wasn't going to compromise in it, and that he could do no wrong. Even the things that went wrong, they weren't his fault. Just look to the future. Just look to the next job. Don't worry about the consequences and stuff. And then it kind of pans to him, and he's just a broken man. in Red
Yes.
Dead 1, a complete mess.
Everything failed.
Yeah,
All of his plans fell through. And then when he ends up fucking killing himself,
yeah.
that's so perfect. That's the shit that Rockstar does so well, where it's like you don't even get the satisfaction of killing this motherfucker. And also, would you even get the satisfaction anyway? I know that obviously Dutch betrays John, but John doesn't want to kill him, and he even tells Edgar and them multiple times that like I would rather kill y'all than Dutch. Like if I had a choice, I would rather kill y'all than Dutch. You got my fucking family tied up. Like I'm gonna do whatever the hell you tell me to do, but I don't want to necessarily kill this dude. He was like a brother to me. And then
Yeah.
Dutch ends up doing it for you. It's like all that shit. Rockstar, man, fucking golly, great storytellers.
It's just crazy. Did they have the second game script already written out that makes the
Right.
character that strong? Like that's so much foresight. Because you can't tell me that you're going through that first game and you're like something was missing. That if he's this important, like that's crazy to have that level of foresight.
Yeah.
Because he is fucking delusional in that second game. Can't remember
Yeah.
what's that island that you end up going to?
Oh,
Fucking guy just loses it in that cave,
yeah.
and it's just like, dude, you you have serious issues. Just strangles that woman,
Yeah.
and he's like, "It's okay, Arthur. We got a plan." It's like, no, you really don't.
Well, and that's the thing too, where you see he's like diabolical in Red Dead 1, like from the get, he shoots that woman in the head in the is it the bank? I mean, he shoots that woman in the head, and you're like, the fuck, dude? Because Red Dead 2, obviously, it leads up to Dutch becoming that person. But a lot of the early parts of Red Dead 2, Dutch is so likable, so fucking charming.
It sh
And
it shows the power of a rat
yeah,
working his magic because it was Micah that was whispering in his ear from the very beginning,
yes,
having him doubt himself. And I think the reason he went into being such a piece of shit human being is because at the end, when Arthur's doing his final ride, Dutch is up there as he watches. Obviously, you can play Arthur as being as a scumbag if you, but I think the canonical thing is he's just an anti-hero at best.
yeah,
Like he does some shitty things, but he's a good man at heart. And Dutch having to look at him and be like, I probably should have just listened to you.
yeah,
I doubted your loyalty and stuff, and I valued Micah over you, and that's a fucking huge mistake. I think that broke him. That was like the final thing. He lost the person that he was, technically closest to.
yeah,
Because all of the good figures in that group died.
yeah,
Every single one of them that could have been the angel on his shoulder and balance out the devil. So when
yeah.
they all went, all he had was his sins, and it just broke him as a man.
That is
Crazy.
crazy. I didn't even think about that. He pretty much leads all of them to their demise.
Yeah.
That is wild. Um, Yeah, dude, it's and it goes to like just the little things as well. The things that you can't really like it's not going to add a fucking point to the review score, but the things that you just appreciate so much when you're hearing the horse clop around and on the dirt it sounds different than when he's walking on the boards. On the, gravel it sounds different than the grass. Like it's just those little things that Rockstar consistently nails. And it's not going to make a bad game good, but it does kind of make a great game like iconic.
Yeah, absolutely. The mysterious stranger, did you run into him in Red Dead 1? The
Was it
He's like
the
really, really well dressed and he's
Oh
very
yeah.
like mysterious.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
The foreshadowing, like just that, adding like details. Because
Yeah, absolutely.
I think the first time you meet him, that's where John's grave ends up being. Because he sits there and says to John, he's like, "This is a good resting spot. It's nice and peaceful."
Oh
He kind of
wow.
foreshadows it and stuff like that. Because he does it in Red Dead 2 as well. He's in that game as well. People think he's the devil.
Dude, those stranger quests in general, some of those are like the highlights of the game. The one where you meet the lady in the church and she got impregnated supposedly by she was a maid and she got impregnated by the dude who hired her or whatever. And she said, "This bastard left me and my kid. We got no money, da 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 da." And then she asked you to go and get some money for her, so her and her kid can, get out of town and get a place to hold up and all that. And you end up killing the dude, bringing her back the money, and then it cuts to the wife mourning at the grave site later on. It just like there's additional layers to that story than what initially meets the eye, and it's like I don't know. A lot of those quests are
Yeah.
the one where you go and pick all the flowers and you bring them back to the dude and he says that he's picking them, he needs these flowers for his wife, but he can't go out and go get them. He's getting older, da 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 da. And then you go back and give him the flowers and his wife is sitting there and it's just a fucking corpse in a chair.
Yeah.
It's like,
That
oh my
that
God.
morbid storytelling is what they excel at because there were two other ones that stood out, one in the DLC and one in the base game. And in the DLC it was the Sasquatches. You can hunt, you get told that they eat babies. So you go and
Yes.
hunt them all down, and then you finally find the last one. He's like, babies? We eat berries, you moron. What is wrong with you?
I
We
remember
don't
seeing that.
bother anybody.
I
And
never
then
played that.
they give you the choice, and it's like he begs you to kill him. He's like, I'm the last of my kind. Like, don't
Oh
make me
man.
suffer on this earth. And it's just like, wow. And then the other one was in that I think of as the base game where I think somebody's like, you need to catch this criminal for me, and he's like really insistent that the guy's like done him over. So you end up like lassoing him, bringing him back. He's like, thanks, man. Guy's got to eat, and he's like, what?
Yeah.
And he's like a full blown cannibal, and the guy's like, what are you doing? Don't leave me here with this crazy guy.
Yeah, dude, I remember seeing that on a YouTube video, the one about the babies and the berries. I remember seeing that on a fucking YouTube video. I was like, dude, I what DLC is that in?
Undead Nightmare.
Undead Nightmare? Okay,
Yeah,
I've never played Undead Nightmare. I
it's the
gotta
zombie one. It's a fairly strong DLC from like a story perspective. It's just it wore me down because every single town kind of works like a Far Cry outpost. But the further, obviously, you're constantly moving around the map in a Red Dead game, and you can like the towns can get attacked and taken back over with the zombies. So you have to go all the way back up north, and it
uh
just got very tedious.
yeah, that's GTA San Andreas sort of shit.
The thing
Oh,
people most hated from that game. Let's
yeah.
bring that back. Come on, Rockstar, you should know better.
Oh fuck, I forgot to do the best-selling games of April in our news right now. We'll hit that we'll hit that next week. I'm already fucking running late here. We'll bring that back next week. But Loon, I appreciate you, dude. This is fun as shit. And I appreciate all of you good people for tuning in and listening and watching at home. It's gonna be a quite the lengthy episode. Timestamps obviously in the description. And yeah, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Appreciate y'all so much for sticking around with us, and we shall see y'all in the next episode. Did that was I'm not mistaken. You did you discuss every game you played?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Just making sure I'm not crazy. Appreciate y'all, man. Appreciate you guys. Appreciate you, Loon, and we will see you soon. Goodbye.
See you later.